Education workers ahead of a planned walkout. Joe Hardin is the NDP MPP representing Ottawa Centre. He tells Wake Up with Rob Snow show what he expects to happen today.
Well, as per the rules that we have, the House isn't supposed to sit after midnight tonight. And I suspect we can probably expect this government to play a game of brinksmanship right up until that deadline. And I think the fact that they're threatening the notwithstanding clause and taking people's human rights and charter rights to bargain, and if needed, to strike away, tell us about the way this government likes to bargain.
And Hardin says he believes that the government and QP can still come to an agreement before the end of the day. And the Ontario Public Service Employees Union's 8,000 education workers will also walk off the job tomorrow in solidarity with QP workers. OPSU represents education workers such as early childhood educators and educational assistants at several boards in the province. OPSU's President J.P. Hornick says legislation the Ontario government is expected to pass today that would impose a contract on QP education workers and ban them from striking is an attack on all workers' bargaining rights. And if the strike does go ahead tomorrow, you can expect a lot of local schools closures. City News reporter Chris Curris with the roundup.
Students in the following school boards will be doing some remote learning tomorrow: the Ottawa Catholic School Board, the Upper Canada District School Board, the French Public Board, the Renfrew County District School Board, and the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario. The following boards will be open: the French Catholic Board, the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board, and the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. That's the one that's in no way affected by the strike. Chris Curry, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Well, it's a cool morning for us, but we'll climb to warm and above average highs. Lots of sunshine today. Any fog will dissipate this morning. The guaranteed high 16 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy 7. And tomorrow, sun and cloud, a brisk southwest wind, and all the way up to 19. Could break the record high for November 4th. For today, the guaranteed high 16.
City News time is 10:03. Among 3 witnesses today at the public inquiry looking into the use of the Emergencies Act last winter, the highly visible Tamara Leach. Leach was responsible for creating one of the initial online fundraisers and soon became one of the movement's most recognizable leaders. Yesterday, we heard from another high-profile organizer, Pat King. He was asked about the 10 days of horn honking, with video from his reaction at the time played at the hearing.
These people haven't been able to sleep for 10 days, okay? It's kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty hilarious.
King quickly found himself on the outs with other leaders because of concerns about his violent and racist rhetoric on social media. And the group Acorn is set to take its fight against the Ontario government's Bill 23 to MPP Lisa MacLeod's office this morning. The group is accusing the Ford government of using the bill to take away the powers that cities have to build any real affordable housing. Acorn says the new legislation overrides measures that cities in this province are taking to protect tenants from renovations and their powers to protect existing affordable housing. The protest is scheduled for 11 a.m. at MPP Lisa MacLeod's office on Greenbank Road. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Sam Laprade, and you are going to join us, I hope, for the whole 3 hours today and stay with us on City News all day. Coming to you from Rogers TV as well. Want to welcome all of our viewers today. We're going to have a really interesting discussion today with Eric Alper, who's a publicist and music commentator. He's going to bring a very special guest today. We're going to be talking about a new documentary that is focused on Sinead O'Connor. We're going to be speaking about that a little bit later. We're also going to be speaking with Patty Coates, president of the Ontario Federation of Labour. This QP strike, boy, oh boy, it's going to be really interesting. We've got lots of news there for you. We're going to be bringing all that to you for the whole day. We know that a lot of parents, especially with the Ottawa Carleton School Board and other school boards that are affected, are standing by to see what's going to be happening there. We're going to be heading to Barrhaven as well. If you can believe it, we're going to talk about the Barrhaven Santa Claus Parade just around the corner. We're going to be talking about all of the details there. And Amy Gagnon is going to join us, Acting Sergeant, Media Relations with Ottawa Police Service. We're going to be talking about pedestrian road safety, really important, especially as those clocks change. The time can feel a little bit off for everybody. We want to make sure everybody is nice and safe. We're also going to spend some time with Martin Sampson, CEO of Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. We wanted to connect today with Dr. Rayot Dianandan, and he is an epidemiologist and associate professor at the University of Ottawa. Hello, Dr. Dianandan. How are you?
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
Good. Listen, on the minds of so many people right now, of course, that flu shot, which Ontarians became eligible for this week. Everybody has been. I know some of the most vulnerable people had it earlier. And COVID. What are you seeing in terms of how Ottawa is reacting to both of these illnesses right now?
Well, we're not really in the thick of flu season yet. That's still coming. And COVID, of course, is highly transmissible at the moment. Across Ontario, we've got about 2,000 cases per day, and number of deaths is holding steady at 20 per day, which is not a good number. So COVID is rough. The big crisis, though, right now is RSV. This virus that affects a lot of children. This is what's clogging our hospitals at the moment and creating this really untenable pediatric hospital crisis, not just in Ottawa, not just in Ontario, but across North America. So we are knee-deep in crisis at the moment.
And when it comes to the little ones, is this expected after what we're coming out of and the fact that COVID obviously has run rampant over the last couple of years? Is this one of the sort of the things that was expected out of the time we've been through?
It's a tough question. So RSV is one of the most common viral illnesses that we acquire in our lives. By the time you're 3 years old, you've been infected a couple of times. What we're seeing now is an enormous wave of respiratory infections, just enormous. That's overwhelming the system. But it's not as big as it was this time last year. And this is an important point. What's happening now is that fraction of people that is having a bad outcome, requiring hospitalization, is larger. And so the hospitalization rate in pediatric hospitals is quite high. Some people are claiming this is due to something called an immunity debt, which is a made-up term. That suggests that during the pandemic restrictions, the kids weren't being exposed to viruses, and so their immune systems weren't being primed, and they're feeling the effect of that now. Mm-hmm. I don't think that makes a lot of sense for a couple of reasons. One is that we are seeing the same phenomenon in places like red states in the USA where there were no pandemic restrictions. And two, we saw this huge wave in 2021 as well, so any immunity debt should have been paid off then with interest. What's possibly happening here is the effect of COVID on a lot of people who've become infected in the past few months. It may be an immunocompromising kind of infection. Nobody knows. Nobody knows yet. But it's quite worrying, and I'm hoping that our leaders take some action soon to help alleviate the stresses on our pediatric hospitals.
And when you say leaders take action, are you referring to political leaders in terms of the pressure on the healthcare system?
Yeah, I am. There are many things we can do. Like I wrote an article for Decision a couple of days ago about some of the easy things we can do around buttressing our human resources in hospitals, getting nurses back to work, creating billing codes for telehealth to keep the ER system a little less busy. But really, we're at the point now where we have to cease demand for services. And that means, hate to say it, bringing back masking in a lot of places. And I'm interested in clean air. So mask and clean air make this problem go away in a few weeks, at least for a while we can fix things. Mm-hmm. But that's a political, third rail right now, masking, unfortunately.
Yeah, so interesting. And as we mentioned, obviously those flu shots have become available to everybody starting on November the 1st. Do you expect a big take-up on those shots?
I didn't a couple of weeks ago. And the government didn't either. They've ordered actually fewer doses than they did last year. Last year the year before we had a huge uptake because of the fear of COVID, but last year the uptake was not as great. So this year, probably somewhere in between. The messaging is not great. People aren't seeing the rationale for the flu vaccine. They think, hey, we've got COVID vaccines, that should cover it. No, the flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine are quite different. The Southern Hemisphere saw a pretty big flu wave, so there's every expectation that we would see one here as well. Mm-hmm. I encourage people, get that flu shot. if for no other reason, to quell and assuage the pressures on the hospital system right now. There's no space in the hospitals. You don't want your grandmother getting the flu and needing a hospital bed and one not being available.
Certainly don't. Absolutely. So when you think about all the things that we've been through, are we where we should be? I mean, I know other doctors have said we're in the endemic phase. Are we in the endemic phase?
I mean, that's really a political designation, an administrative term. What it means technically is the reproduction number, that's the average number of new cases produced by an existing case, hovers around 1. And I think we're seeing growth right now, so we're not there locally. And some parts of the world, we probably are there. If we are endemic, it's not a good place to be endemic at this levels. What I'm hoping is that we can, bear through this rough period and get a mucosal vaccine into circulation sometime next year. And there's several being trialed at the moment. A mucosal vaccine hopefully will stop transmission in its tracks. So there's still hope that we can quash COVID. But are we where we thought we would be? We are where we are. It's not a great place to be, but it's where we are. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the responsibility for managing infection has been downloaded onto individual citizens, and we have to do what we can do.
Dr. Dianandan, when you go to the grocery store, are you wearing a mask?
I am. I wear a mask every time I'm in a public indoor setting. And I have a child in daycare who's not masked in daycare, so I fully expect him to bring home COVID one day. But when I go to pick him up, I wear a mask because we mitigate where we can. Nothing is perfect, but we do what we can.
It's so interesting because I find, I don't know if it's just my perception of it, I find in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed more people publicly wearing a mask.
Good. I think there's good signaling there. And Ottawa in general has higher compliance rates than other places. And one of the problems here is our leaders aren't modeling good behavior. Yeah, masking is voluntary, but it should be highly encouraged. And if we see more public leaders doing so, then we normalize it. It's okay to be the weirdo in the room. It's okay to be the person wearing the mask. It's the right thing to do, frankly.
How are you feeling about the uptake on boosters? I know my daughter and I went to get our boosters on, I believe, Tuesday night. And, it certainly wasn't like it was when we were all desperately trying to get those first shots, for sure. Are you feeling the uptake is coming, or are you still feeling people are reluctant? Like a lot of my friends only have 2. And they just don't want to get anything else, and it just seems to me, and obviously I'm not the doctor you are, but it seems to me that would have worn off by now.
2 doses aren't enough. 2 doses probably protect most people from the very, very, very worst outcomes, but that's waning. This is at minimum a 3-dose vaccine. We should get vax to the max if we can. I am concerned about the waning uptake. And for no other reason that it signals to the drug companies that there isn't sufficient market for them to develop better vaccines. So what we saw with India, for example, has a mucosal vaccine. And that vaccine was developed in the USA. The developers could not find a drug company in the Western world to take it on because there wasn't sufficient market for it, because they saw how few people are taking boosters at the moment. So this behavior has ramifications for future iterations of better vaccines.
Interesting. I never thought about that perspective, and that's why we like chatting with you. Dr. Dianandan joining us today, epidemiologist and associate professor at the University of Ottawa. I know how busy you are. Thank you so much, Doctor.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
You could say...
Little brown girl, don't. Hey, I'm Picasso in Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
Sometimes it's hard to say goodbye to an old friend. But when you're saying farewell to your vehicle, Kidney Car makes it fast and easy. Just call or visit our website. We'll take any vehicle in any condition and give you a tax receipt for a minimum of $300. No headaches and no towing charges. It's the one-stop solution for getting rid of your unwanted vehicle in just a few short minutes. When your vehicles reach the end of the road, call us toll-free or visit kidneycar.ca.
My Uncle Cheney was one of over 150,000 Indigenous children that were taken to residential schools between the 1800s and 1996. My uncle ran away from school wanting to get home to his mom and dad, and sadly he didn't make it and died of exposure. When Gord Downey found out about my late Uncle Cheney's story, he wrote Secret Path, a series of poems that became an album, then a graphic novel, a documentary, and a concert. Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asked us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
From coast to coast, all across Canada, there's something very special going on. It's time to show your support. Time to spread the word. Time to demonstrate your commitment to safe and sober driving. Join thousands of Canadians and tie a ribbon on something or someone you love. And take the time to have a real conversation about impaired driving. MAD Project Red Ribbon. Tie it, wear it, show it, share it, live it. Find out more at mad.ca.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Gone grocery shopping, that food prices have gone up, and there is a big solution that I want to share with you today that Lori Nickel and her team have been working on for a very long time. These numbers are going to shock you, so a little bit of a warning. Lori Nickel, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
I just love hearing your voice. It always makes me happy because I know you're doing some really good things, Lori. Lori is the Chief Executive Officer at Second Harvest. Let's break some myths today about some of the food waste in this country. It is shocking, Lori. I still think about all these past years, you sharing some of these numbers with us. Give us a sense, Lori, of how much food is going to waste in this country.
Well, 58% of all the food produced for Canadians is lost or wasted across the supply chain. Now, not all of that is edible, but the unavoidable and edible part is 32%. That's 11.2 million metric tons.
That is absolutely staggering, considering, Lori, the amount of food banks that are overrun right now. People are going to them in huge numbers. We know here in Ottawa, before the pandemic, the Ottawa Food Bank was caring for about 39,000 people a month, and that's gone up to 52,000. And this is just not Ottawa. This is across the country, as you know better than I. Walk us through what some of these solutions are, Lori.
Well, I just want to preface that number is conservative because those are the numbers of people going to the food banks. And in Canada, there's about 4,500 food banks in the food bank network. There's 61,000 charities and nonprofits that are supporting people with food at no or low cost.
Such a good point, Lori. Thank you. Yes.
Extrapolate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, there's a couple problems, right? So one is food insecurity is really about people having money in their pockets to go buy food at the grocery store. So we need to really look at some policy changes so that we can ensure that happens. But on the other side, we also need to make sure that we're providing food to these people, to these families. And as a former low-income person myself, it's a scary time when you can't you don't know where you're getting your next meal for yourself or for your children. So at Second Harvest, what we've been advocating for is something called the Surplus Food Rescue Program, which was a program that came out during COVID that allowed Second Harvest and some other charities to purchase surplus food from across the supply chain, transform it if we needed to. So if we're going far north, we turn that salmon into canned salmon, and then distribute it to the charitable network. It's a win-win because it really helps support the producers, the manufacturers, so that we can get that food so it's not going into waste and creating, damaging environmental impacts and get it to communities that need it. While we also work at systems change and policy change on food loss and waste and on poverty.
Are people surprised that are leading this country or leading provinces or cities how much food is waste? I always, share this number because you've shared it with me over the years. But are people that are policy makers and decision makers surprised at this huge number?
Well, no, because we did the research in 2019, so we actually have to update it. And we worked with Stats Canada, and so you'll see these are the numbers that are literally on the website, the federal government's website. So it's not a surprise. I think people don't think about it all the time because you're in your day to day, and then every time you hear it again, you're like shocked by it because you're not thinking about it. But our policymakers are aware of this number. There's a Food Policy Advisory Council in Canada, and I'm a member of that. And one of the things we are looking at is what are the strategies to manage this. But I think that nothing is moving even close to being fast enough, especially now while we're watching food prices getting higher and higher. The gap between rich and poor is bigger and bigger. We're going into a recession. The lineups at the food charities are longer and longer. And what's really important, too, is people need healthy food, right? So at Second Harvest, we're all about perishable, healthy food because if you don't have that, we're seeing it already. Like educational outcomes are diminished, health outcomes are diminished. So this is really just preventative because we're paying for it ultimately.
Absolutely. Your website has got lots of great information.
Sure does. secondharvest.ca. Please visit it.
Absolutely. Lori, always appreciate your time. Lori Nicol is the Chief Executive Officer at Second Harvest. Let's get caught up again and continuing this conversation, Lori.
Thanks so much, Sam.
Always appreciate Lori's time. We wanted to spend some time as well today with Martin Sampson, CEO of the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. How are you, Martin?
I'm very well, Sam. It's lovely to hear your voice. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
Well, it's great. So I was on LinkedIn and I saw that you have this new role, and I don't know much about Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. Tell us a little bit about it, Martin.
I do indeed have this new role. I'm very excited about it. The Canadian Parks and Recreation Association's mission is to fully realize the role that parks and recreation can play in building a healthy and vibrant Canada. Our role is to represent the sector from across the country and our 13 members who are the provincial and territorial parks and recreation associations to the federal government. We convene community across the country, and then we bring some resources to that community. We have a couple of pretty exciting new funding programs that we just launched, which I'd be happy to talk about. But yeah, it's an exciting opportunity for me personally, and it's an important organization in terms of representing this important sector, this industry, to federal policymakers.
For sure. Tell us about some of these projects, Martin.
So we just launched a project called Reaching Each and Every One, which is informed by the Community Sport for All initiative at Sport Canada. And the objective of our program is to remove barriers that equity-deserving and underserved groups face when trying to access recreational sport. So, people with disabilities, new Canadians, disproportionately women and girls, face barriers when accessing recreational sport. And our firm belief, and it's backed up by the data, is that when more individuals participate in recreational sport, it's good for everybody. And it's good for, educational outcomes. It's good for economic outcomes. It's certainly good for health outcomes, both mental and physical. So the job here is to remove those barriers so that more people can engage in recreational sporting activities for the benefit of all of us.
And how can people learn more information or get involved somehow, Martin?
Sure. So we invite anybody who wants to learn more about this program or any of our work to either go to our website, which is cpra.ca, that's Canadian Parks and Recreation Association.ca, cpra.ca, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's where you can keep current on the latest initiatives. And we do have this funding call that's open right now. So any community-based organization that is in a position to remove the barriers that these equity-deserving groups face when trying to access recreational sport can apply. Now, here is the thing. The application deadlines at this point are quite aggressive. I believe we're accepting applications until November 12th, with exceptions in the Atlantic region because of Hurricane Fiona. We've extended the application deadlines there.
That's very kind of you to do that. We know our friends in the East definitely have gone through a very challenging time. And give us a sense of an example of maybe some funding that someone could receive. Is it to create, accessible park, for instance?
Yeah, exactly. So anything that removes barriers, either programmatically or from a policy perspective. So we're also looking at organizations come forward with policy suggestions. How can we change policy in regions that make it easier for these groups to access recreational sport? Mm-hmm. So there's all sorts of examples. In terms of a very simple one, but one that's actually quite profound is, if you're a senior, you may not have the transportation to get to a program.
Right.
So is it possible that a community group would come together and just simply provide transportation services to seniors to get to a class at their local recreation facility?
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. For sure. Thank you so much, Martin, for spending time with us on City News and sharing everything about Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. I wish you all the best in your new role.
Well, I appreciate it very much, Sam. As I said, it's lovely to hear your voice. And my mission is to remove the perception that, parks and recreation are kind of a nice to have, and really position them appropriately, that they are an essential service, and essential in the sense that they're essential to building the Canada that we want to live in and work in and raise our families in. So thank you so much for the time, I hope to see you in person soon.
I look forward to it. You can see why Martin's a CEO. He's certainly dedicated there. Martin Sampson, CEO of Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. As we know, we have been focused on the Emergencies Act inquiry. Michael Kempa, Associate Professor of Criminology at the University of Ottawa, is going to join us to talk about the inquiry. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, some people used the A word. They called it an accident, but it wasn't. An accident implies that no one was at fault. But when someone impaired by alcohol and/or drugs chooses to drive, they're fully responsible for the crash that can result. So please, for the memory of my brother DJ and the thousands of families whose lives have been shattered by impaired drivers, let's drop the A word.
A crash caused by impaired driving is not an accident.
After a 2-year hiatus, we are back with brand new episodes of Celebrate Ottawa starting this fall. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that will entertain you and will even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grind, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I'm joined by my friend Neil from Ottawa Valley Meats. Tune in to see what we're grilling up on the barbecue.
traffic and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Thursday, November 3rd. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, 7 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it is 10. And here's what's making news this hour. Members of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union have announced plans to walk off the job in solidarity with QP workers tomorrow. OPSU represents education assistants and early childhood educators at several boards in the province. Now, several Ottawa school boards, including the Ottawa Catholic School Board, the Upper Canada Board, Renfrew County District, the French Public Board in Ottawa, and the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario have all said they will have to close on Friday because they cannot operate safely without the striking workers. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is to table her media budget update in the House of Commons today, and is expected to focus heavily on driving investment to Canada's clean energy industries in response to new American tax incentives signed into law last summer. The government is already further ahead financially than expected as inflation and a stronger economic recovery have driven up tax revenues. Now, despite the higher earnings, the government is likely preparing for a potential recession next year. Rogers Communication is helping over 50,000 Canadian youth reach their highest potential. The company has awarded its 2022 TED Rogers Community Grants to over 70 registered charities and non-profits in 250 communities across the country. The program supports youth aged 15 to 29 in the areas of education, digital literacy, health, sport, and entrepreneurship. Rogers is the parent company of this radio station. City News time is 10:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, welcome back to this Thursday. Certainly a very busy news day, of course, here at City News. We wanted to talk today with Michael Kempa, Associate Professor of Criminology at the University of Ottawa. How are you, Michael?
Very well this morning.
Good. You've been following the Emergencies Act inquiry just like I have been. Every single day it seems to be something new. We saw Pat King yesterday testifying. Tamara Litch is going to be testifying today. What have you heard over the last couple of days that interests you?
The main thing that I've been hearing is the degree to which we knew there were divisions and rifts within the convoy generally, but the rifts and divisions are much more central, close to the very core of the organization of the convoy than even I suspected, where we're hearing, for example, Brigitte Belton alleging that Tamara Leach had an alternate agenda, that she wanted to take over the convoy for her own political reasons that had nothing to do with COVID-19, including being one of the earliest members of the convoy who was looking to purchase St. Bridget's Church in Ottawa way back at the time of the convoy to establish a permanent protest base in the city. Now, that's quite surprising to hear that from one of the core organizers. Mm-hmm. We've heard from Keith Wilson that our witness today, Mr. Dichter, Benjamin Dichter, allegedly has not returned all of the Bitcoin that had been raised, something to the tune of $1 million. So we'll be looking for information on that today, certainly. So the money, the intrigue, the competing agendas, it's absolutely massive and central, not on the periphery of the convoy, but right up the middle of it.
If you wrote a book, I don't think people would believe it, and yet it was reality in many ways for so many. And you know, what's so interesting for me is the layers of people not being cooperative on both sides. You know, we saw this certainly from a policing perspective, and now we're seeing it from the convoy perspective. It really was a mess on both sides in many ways.
In some ways, yes, where there's a lot of finger pointing and disavowal. You know, the old saying, defeat is an orphan, or mistakes are an orphan. And I saw a great tweet out there that it seems that a lot of mistakes were made in the passive voice. Just bad things happened, and it wasn't by the person, caused by the person on the witness stand. One of the things that's really striking, though, in all of that is this movement started with a variety of players who had different agendas, including James Bowder, who was from Canada Unity with the famous MOU calling for the removal of the government and some sort of alternate coalition with the Governor General, with Tamara Leach, who has a background in Wexit politics and previous convoys to do with things like fuel tariffs and oil and gas line policy, with Patrick King, who has had a larger social media following and was very famous for all manner of conspiracy theories, in addition to supporting some issues with gas pipelines. So it's all come together around the hook issue of COVID-19. And in a sense, I'm picking up that the truckers may have been used in a way as a kind of vehicle to carry this message and these alternate agendas with the hope that it would attract more and more followers all the way to Ottawa.
I can't agree more. Honestly, I thought the exact same thing, Michael, because it was so dramatic, right? To think that these trucks were barreling towards the capital from the west and from the east, and and really making quite a statement, right? Because it was such a visual thing to see as well. And it was such a confusing time because there were people that were just like, I just want to protest. I want my rights to be heard, and yet we would see forms of hate in terms of flags and language and action. So it was a very confusing time, and I think you're right. I think a lot of people got sort of pulled into this, really not understanding what the full agenda was.
And a small number of people with bad intentions are very skilled at manipulating mass protests like this. They recognize it. They go wherever they see an opportunity to expand their ideology. So if they can get in on a protest like this with all the visuals that you just mentioned and the media attention and the ability to raise money, then they start infiltrating and cooperating, as we've been hearing, with police and security organizations. The main prize for those with bad intentions is to ultimately get inside of the police, get inside of the military, and ultimately elected office. That is how radical ideologies, that's basically their ultimate objective. And something like a convoy like this, I'm not saying that the intentions of who we're seeing on the stand over the last couple of days, but maybe some more sophisticated people who are manipulating them, that's their objective, to get into elected politics.
Well, and then you add on top of it all, what was happening at the War Memorial. And, just to be fully transparent, I work for the Legion National Foundation. So this remembrance period, obviously, is heightened for me. But 365 days of the year, that memorial is so key. So when things started happening, horrible things started happening around that War Memorial, it also sent a very strong message about the way that people were visiting the Capitol, which was in such a disturbing way, I'll call it that.
Well, and that's it. And that's where the point you get the bleed over of competing messages. There are a lot of ordinary Canadians out there who came out of curiosity. They came for a party. They'd been cooped up for a couple of years. They came because they were either confused or angry about what was, at best, inconsistent government messaging about COVID-19 and vaccination policies. But once they got there, many of them were exposed to all manner of radical ideologies from the right, from Christian fundamentalism, racist policies, and so forth, such that the crowd thinned out of regular Canadians as time went along, and the dynamics of the crowd changed. We're seeing that in evidence the last few days. Somewhere around the 11th, 12th, 13th of February, the police were encountering a harder and harder element. Some of whom at least saw themselves, as we've learned in intelligence disclosures, as at war with the Canadian state. So Peter slowly talked about multiple convoys. There wasn't one convoy. It's definitely the case that as time dragged on, the flavor of the crowd became much more militant.
Mm-hmm. The one part, and once again, I've been following it as much as I can. Obviously, I'm here on air a lot during the day, so I haven't followed every single minute. One part that I know was very concerning for many people is what was inside the trucks, right? There was lots of discussion, especially about what happened in Coutts, Alberta. There was lots of discussion, what is inside the trucks? And when we learned that, obviously from that perspective, it was, are there bombs inside the trucks? Are there guns inside of the trucks? I mean, there was lots of discussion about that. But when we layer on the fact that there was over 120 children on site, That really was disturbing to so many, because we knew that there were some, there's bouncy castles and all that ridiculous stuff there. But when I think about the amount of children that were on site, that must have been a very complicating factor as well.
And it was. And this was calculated by those with the worst intentions who had begun to take over the convoy. Number one, it tries to manipulate the public image that this is a family-friendly protest. Number two, it makes security operations that much more difficult because the police, RCMP, and other intelligence agencies do not want to have an operation on the ground with children in the middle of it. It's too volatile and dangerous. So there were some there, unfortunately, who were just putting children into harm's way in a calculated fashion.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the final day? I mean, when the push was being really felt by all sides, trying to, the police were lined up and trying to break down this occupation. There was a couple of women there with children, and that has always sort of been a big question for me as well, as why children were involved. Have you heard any of the talk about children in any capacity in the testimony that you've heard?
In fact, no, that has not yet come up in evidence. I suspect that it will when we get to the level of the higher levels of government and the consideration of ministers as to why they ultimately declared an emergency. One of the biggest powers they mobilized was to simply declare the zone around Parliament a no-protest zone, which meant that it was very clear that you had to leave, and they were able to exclude more people from coming in, including kids. This was to create what Steve Bell called a stable environment. Steve Bell's the deputy chief at the time of the Ottawa Police. A stable environment in which a police operation could be conducted. So I expect ministers at the federal level, Mendocino in particular, will get into that.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be really interesting because, of course, it wasn't Winterlude by any stretch, right? I mean, there were snipers on the tops of the bookstore and tops of the Rideau Center. I mean, this was not a place for children.
Well, no, and in fact, the Children's Aid Society of Ottawa spoke out very clearly against that and strongly urged people to get their children out of that zone. Mm-hmm. And had police spokespeople going on radio and so forth, encouraging people to clear out, because it was clear that a security operation would be coming in the coming days.
Mm-hmm. Who are you looking forward to hearing from next, Michael?
Well, the big one today is going to be Tamara Leach, last up, who will probably go quite late into the evening. We need to know more about what happened to the volumes of cash that was donated. I mean, physically donated, handed over on a daily basis. We got a little bit of a clue into that when we heard Chris Barber talking about thousands of dollars, 20s of thousands of dollars on a daily basis. Where is that money now? Did it end up in accounts, or has it been spent? And if so, how? Or is somebody holding on to it? From there, when we wrap up with the convoy organization, next week we go to Windsor and we start pulling apart what were the connections between protests in Windsor and protests in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm. Do you think in the end we'll see Doug Ford and Sylvia Jones testify?
It's a tricky one because parliamentary privilege is basically a brick wall concept in the law, which means the Supreme Court has said we can't even question it, even if a politician is abusing it. But we have found a small door to get into that and at least ask the question, which is that commissions of inquiry came after the advent of parliamentary privilege, which means we can now ask the question, does it apply to this type of inquiry, which is itself a creature of government? It's not a separate court. Mm-hmm. So there is I would look at it now that the judge has said we can at least ask the question, we can get past the brick wall. It's 50-50 as to what the judge will say next Tuesday when he gives his judgment. And I would say no matter which way it goes, it is strongly now in Mr. Ford and Sylvia Jones's interest to show up to testify.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Let's get caught up again, Michael. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
Michael Kempa joining us today, Associate Professor of Criminology at the University of Ottawa, talking about all things Emergencies Act inquiry. We're going to be following this story very, very closely. And of course, if you're on Twitter, you might have seen a little bit of a change. Elon Musk is now the big owner. Susan Murphy's going to join us. She's a digital marketing specialist. We're going to be talking about Twitter when we come back on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Little brown girl. Hey, I'm Picasso Invontief. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
When it comes to drugs, how much freedom is too much for kids?
Drugs are out there. Will my teen feel free to say no around other kids?
I didn't live drug-free when I was younger. Can I admit that to my kids?
Drugs worry me, but how can I feel free to talk about it with my kids?
Questions about drugs and kids? Drug-Free Kids Canada.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, well, let's just start off with reminding you that the clocks go back. And that being said, on Thursday, we'll tell you how you can properly ensure that your body adjusts to that time change. We'll also tell you about some local theater because there's a return to live in-person theater here in Ottawa and the benefits of hobbies, especially for those suffering from PTSD. All that and more on Thursday's Daytime.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Donations to the War Amps have a lasting impact on amputees. Today, your support gives them the artificial limbs and resources they need for everyday activities and learning to live with amputation. Having access to our essential programs helps amputees prepare for tomorrow on their road to independence. The War Amps is committed to improving the quality of life for Canadian amputees, but this wouldn't be possible without you. To learn how your donation helps, visit waramps.ca.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it certainly has been dramatic over the last number of months. Elon Musk wanting to take over Twitter, and he has done so. We wanted to find out if Twitter has changed. We wanted to speak with Susan Murphy today. She's a digital marketing specialist with Gesture Creative. How are you, Susan?
I'm doing really well, Sam. How are you?
Good. I know you love Twitter. I see you on Twitter. You're engaging on there. I know you've created a lot of connections over the years. Has Twitter changed since Elon Musk has taken over?
How's Twitter changed? That's the ultimate question, right? Everybody thinks, boy, they have a new CEO. He's just fired the whole board. He's just fired his executive. And now here he is, doing whatever he wants on Twitter. And I think that there are changes coming. There are changes in the works, but nothing has really changed fundamentally other than I've heard that there's been lots of reports of sort of more negative stuff, maybe some of the things that people have been saying are not getting filtered out anymore.
It's going to be really interesting. How have you used Twitter over the years, Susan?
I started on Twitter right when it first came out, right around 2006, 2007. And I fell in love with it right away. I thought it was a really amazing place to connect with people, whether it was on a social level or on a professional level. I've done both. I've done business on Twitter. I've met people who have become lifelong friends. And I think, I always looked at Twitter as sort of a choose your own adventure kind of platform where I can follow who I want to follow, I can ignore who I want to ignore, and I can make it my own experience.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because there's been times where Twitter has really been valuable, especially when it comes to crisis, right? I mean, a lot of people go to Twitter because it's, quickly you're going to find out what's happening. How else do you think is useful for kind of the everyday user, if you will?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a place. I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning who said, I use Twitter for getting the news, whether it's local, international, national, kind of get a pulse on what the sentiment is around current news and current topics and things like that. So I think for the average user, I think they can get information from a lot of different sources and sort of make up their own opinions about things as a result.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think uses Twitter well, Susan? I mean, I see a lot of corporations do a really good job of using Twitter, and then we see some that, well, let's just say they don't do a very good job. Who do you think is in the they use Twitter really well category?
Oh, wow. I think that brands who are a little bit cheeky on Twitter do really well. Wendy's, for example, has had some good success with some of their promotions. A famous one that I think of was Oreo, that came out with an ad when there was a power outage, and they came out with an ad on Twitter and really got a lot of attention, things like that. So it's companies, and in terms of brands anyway, it's companies that can really, capture a moment, right, and engage people in that moment are the ones that do really well.
One of the things that has driven me crazy about Twitter over the years is you can't edit. So, something as simple as, I can't really see that well anymore. I'm getting really old, Susan. So sometimes I'll be typing away and I'll realize I want to write the word T-O, and I look and it's been on Twitter for 2 hours and it says Y-O or something like that, right? Yeah. And I can't edit that. It drives me crazy. So that is one of the things we understand Elon wants to do is to add this edit function.
Yeah, he does. It is, I think a lot of people are looking forward to having that feature. For myself, I've always been sort of on the fence about the edit button. I think Twitter is a spur of the moment, kind of in the moment platform, and sometimes it's imperfect, So yeah, it might be good to be able to go back and change that typo that your autocorrect did by mistake. But at the same time, I don't know if I want people to go back and change their opinions about things, in a tweet, if, they're going to get a feedback or something like that. So it's got pros and cons, I think.
For sure. I understand too, there may be an option for us to see the history, right, of the tweet as well. So you could look back and see, they changed something or whatever, but a really, really important point there for sure. And the use of Twitter over the years, there's a lot of hate on Twitter, and it breaks my heart because I, like you, have used it for, personal reasons. I've used it for professional reasons. I'm really grateful to be able to connect with City News, obviously listeners and Rogers TV viewers. Like that part I love. I love being able to connect to lots of different people. The hate piece is really, really difficult because all of these different accounts are created. A lot of it is obviously anonymous. So it's these, people, I always picture them in their underwear sitting in their mother's basements, but typing this horrible stuff on Twitter, and there's no accountability for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really tricky situation, and I'm certainly not a lawyer or anybody who's in a position of authority to talk about how to control or manage hate speech and things like that on the platform. But, I think it's interesting that with this new ownership, it's going to be looked at, for better or for worse. I don't know. Nobody really knows what it means when Elon Musk comes out and says, I'm going to, promote free speech on Twitter. We don't really know what that means yet. And I think we have to sort of wait it out and see sort of what direction that's going to go. Like I said, I think every social media platform has this risk attached to it, in that people can hide behind their keyboards and say whatever they want. But it's a tricky situation. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next couple of months with Twitter in that respect.
Certainly will. And we know Elon Musk loves the theatrics, right? So him walking in on the very first day carrying a sink with the tweet, "Let this sink in." What did you make of that, Susan?
Well, I guess he's trying to be funny,
right?
And he's certainly getting attention, right? And he's very good at that. He is the eccentric billionaire, and he's doing strange things and eccentric things all the time to get our attention. Does he have a message? I'm not sure yet. Does he have a motivation for spending $44 billion on Twitter? I'm not sure yet. I think that it's going to be interesting to see this changeover. There's a lot of stuff happening at Twitter right now. He just announced that he was going to be cutting half of the staff, so it's 3,700 people. He's going to be making a lot of changes on the upper levels of Twitter, the executives and the board and things like that. So the dust needs to settle a little bit, I think, before we can see what the way forward is going to be with the organization.
Well, I'll be watching closely. I know you will be as well.
Definitely will be.
Absolutely. Susan Murphy, really appreciate your time today. Digital marketing specialist with Jester Creative, does some great work. Thanks for spending time with us here on City News.
Thanks, Sam. This is great.
Following up on all things Twitter, we'll be following that story very closely. We have lots of great guests for you coming up. Acting Sergeant Amy Gagnon is going to join us from Media Relations, Ottawa Police Service. We're going to be talking about pedestrians being hit in this community. It seems like every day in the last little bit, somebody has been injured and been hit as a pedestrian. So we want to talk a little bit about that today and make sure that we're all more aware behind the wheel. We're also going to speak with the Director of Communications for the Barrhaven Food Cupboard and the President of the Barrhaven Food Cupboard about the Santa Claus Parade. Santa is coming to town very soon. We're going to learn all of the details. Lock it in to Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week, they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university. So they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone. But I worry about and take care of my guys. So even when I know they're not driving, sometimes that means bringing them a little surprise. And then they had a drink to me.
Brought to you by Smart Serve Ontario and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, November 3rd. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy, 9 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it is 10. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As it stands, QP workers will walk off the job tomorrow despite legislation that would make the strike illegal. Joel Harden, MPP for Ottawa South, tells City News the fact that the Ford government is threatening to invoke the notwithstanding clause rather than bargain with QP in good faith tells Ontarians about how the government likes to do things.
I think we're going to have a game of chicken right up until midnight tonight. But frankly, I just wish the Premier would actually back up some of the things I've heard him say about how much he respects the workers of this province. He's the leader. The buck stops with him. He has to tell his education minister and the bargaining team that these workers deserve a fair settlement. And I think they deserve at least what the Premier gave his own MPPs.
And OPSU, the union representing Ontario Public Service Employees Union, have now announced plans to walk off the job in solidarity with the QP workers tomorrow. OPSU represent education assistants and early childhood educators at several boards in the province. If the planned strike goes ahead tomorrow, several Ottawa school boards, including the Ottawa Catholic School Board, the Upper Canada Board, Renfrew County District, the French Public Board in Ottawa, and the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario, have said they will close because they can't operate safely without QP workers. And the French Catholic Board, the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board, and the Ottawa Carleton District School Board will remain open tomorrow. With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Oh, you need the extra layers this morning. It's quite cool, but we'll climb to 16 for the guaranteed high. Lots of sunshine, 7 for the low. And tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, we could be close to record-breaking highs, near 19 to about 22 degrees. For today, the guaranteed high, 16.
City News time, 11:02. It looks like it's going to be a challenging cold and flu season in Ottawa, and a local epidemiologist is calling for a return of mask mandates. City News reporter Chris Curries has the details.
COVID is still here, as is the flu, but it's not the biggest issue right now.
The big crisis, though, right now is RSV. This virus that affects a lot of children. This is what's clogging our hospitals at the moment and creating this really untenable pediatric hospital crisis.
Rewa Dianandon is an epidemiologist and associate professor at the University of Ottawa and says it's not just here in Ottawa, but throughout North America. And the best way to combat this is by clean air and masks.
We're at the point now where we have to cease demand for services. And that means, hate to say it, bringing back masking in a lot of places.
He understands that it wouldn't be politically popular, but even just normalizing the wearing of a mask would go a long way. Chris Curry's City News.
And the group Acorn is set to take its fight against the Ontario government's Bill 23 to MPP Lisa MacLeod's office at this hour. The group is accusing the Ford government of using the bill to take away the powers that cities have to build any real affordable housing. Acorn says the new legislation overrides measures that cities in the province are taking to protect tenants from renovations and also their powers to protect existing affordable housing. The protest started at 11 a.m. at MPP Lisa MacLeod's office on Greenbank Road. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, there is lots happening in our community, and it's my honor to join you here every day on City News and share some of these great initiatives. We wanted to head all the way to Canada and get caught up today with Beverly Brooks. Hi, Beverly.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about the beautiful Canada Theatre, and I know you've got a great production happening there. That theatre, it just doesn't get enough love. It's a beautiful theatre.
Have you been there yourself?
I have. I saw a play, I believe, and I'm trying to recall, I think it was Anne of Green Gables. Does that make sense?
Well, it wasn't one that I was involved in, but I'm sure we did one, probably one of the Christmas shows. Yes, it is a beautiful theatre. It has an audience capacity of 350 seats, so it's a decent size, and we run for 2 weeks, so a fair number of people can get to see the play, see our plays. The theatre was designed by the same architect who designed the Princess of Wales Theatre in Toronto. So it has it's very good sort of acoustically and all the things that an actor needs to be able to project. And so it's a good space.
It is definitely a beautiful space. I know when I arrived for the very first time, I thought, this is a little gem in our city that I hadn't discovered yet. So we're encouraging everyone to go out, and we would love them to go see Doubt, a Parable. And you're the director. I'm sure you're very busy, Beverly.
Oh yes, the week before the show goes up is crazy. It's when everything comes together, and you're trying to synchronize, lights, sounds, costumes, and if anything's going to go wrong, all those little things there and need sorting out, all in that last week. And
for sure.
Yes, you've got to wear lots of hats and put out lots of little fires, and make sure everything comes together. But with the incredible cast and crew that we have on this show, all those particular problems have been minimal. It has been an absolute joy working on this production. And, from everybody involved, everyone has been so enthusiastic and, we've gone over and beyond to make everything happen, and very smoothly. So
that's lovely. Tell us a little bit about, we have about a minute. Tell us a little bit about this play.
About the
play.
The play. Oh, the play, right. Of course. Well, it's a multi-leveled play. It's what you see on the surface makes it sound very simplistic. It suggests that a school principal in the Bronx in 1964, she takes matters into her own hands when she suspects a young priest of having an improper relationship with one of the pupils. But it's far more than a case of did he or didn't he. That would just be a very, very simplistic story. It turns out that it is a battle of wills between this very traditional, conservative, disciplinarian principal and a very progressive, open-minded priest. And she would like to get rid of him for her own agenda, her own motives. And is it that she's just using this accusation to, get what she wants? She wants to get him out of her school because she fears the changes that he's going to bring. And she tries to get the little boy's mother and one of the other nuns on side to gather evidence against the priest. And the play hinges on the idea of certainty, and whether or not just being certain in your own mind about something is enough to destroy someone's career, reputation, etc. And the play reflects the situation where people make up their minds and won't let new information change their minds. So it plays into the current idea of conspiracy theories and all this kind of thing, where if you're certain about something, nothing will change your mind, and how dangerous that is if you don't question things and have an open mind to issues. So there's a lot going on here.
Well, Beverly, we really look forward to this run.
I'm sorry, I've got a very, very quiet line here.
Oh, that's okay. We're going to get tickets. We're going to let you go. We're going to go on to another guest, but I want to make sure people know they can get tickets at the Canada Theatre. And of course, Beverly Brooks is the director of Doubt, a Parable. Sounds like a really interesting production there. We wanted to spend some time today with acting Sergeant Amy Gagnon. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. Amy Gagnon, of course, with Media Relations with Ottawa Police Services. There's not a day recently, Sergeant, that we haven't seen somebody hit by a vehicle. It just seems to be an everyday occurrence. Or is that just in my mind, or is that what's really happening?
Actually, unfortunately, within the last 48 hours, we've had 5 collisions involving pedestrians. Wow. And it is disturbing. And the latest one, which happened last night, and you may be referring to on Merivale Road, unfortunately, the pedestrian has succumbed to their injuries. So out of those 5, we do have a fatal collision, but we also have 4 others that have, life-altering injuries. And, the sun is a little later in rising and a little earlier in setting, and we want to remind people, slow down. Make sure your lights are on. If you're out walking at night, please don't wear black. Wear something that's visible. Safer Roads Ottawa is actually handing out some reflecting materials, whether it's for your arms or wear a vest. Make sure you're crossing at crosswalks. It's just a good reminder to everyone. Just watch out for each other, because we all want everyone to get home safely at the end of the day.
Oh, 100%. And I'm so sorry to the family of the person that lost their life last night. That is really, really tragic. And it just doesn't need to be that way in terms of pedestrians getting home safely, all of us getting home safely, to your point, Sergeant. And the time change is coming up, which is always, it seems from studies, that this is a time where a lot of collisions happen as well.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it often takes time for our bodies to adjust. We might be a little more fatigued. It's not quite jet lag, but it does affect our system. And so it's a reminder, whether you're walking, whether you're cycling, whether you're driving, you know what? Pay attention to the roadways. Pay attention to everyone around you. Mm-hmm. Put your cell phones away and just keep your eyes on the road.
Mm-hmm, for sure. It must be difficult on Ottawa Police Service as well, all of your members, when they're out and responding to these calls, such difficult calls to respond to.
Yes, it is. It's difficult for officers that initially respond to the call. It's hard on the investigators that have to comb through the scene, and as well that have to follow up with the family members and those that are injured. It's not easy news to give any family member, and so it weighs. Fortunately, we do have a good team that takes care of each other, and we have our executive that looks out for our people. But it's a reminder, it's hard on everyone.
And I think a lot of people, you leave in the morning and you might be all dressed in black or dark clothes, but because that, that sun is setting so much earlier, you don't realize you're going to be walking home and it's going to be dark, right? I mean, we have to remember to plan for the whole day.
Absolutely, and that's a great point. And so pack a jacket that has a reflector on it. You can go out and buy a reflective vest. It doesn't need to be something outrageous, but just a little something that makes you visible when you're walking right at dusk.
Mm-hmm. Dusk is such a challenging time as well. I've noticed recently, because I'm driving more into the country now, I've noticed a lot of animals as well, to be cautious of them crossing the road. We had a deer, unfortunately, cross our path recently, and there was no collision, but it's something to be aware of as well.
Absolutely. Actually, I've come almost face-to-face with several deer in the last few weeks. They're almost invisible till they're right in front of you. And so it's, again, a reminder, keep your eyes on the road, but as well, the speed limits are there for a reason. Mm-hmm. If you're actually driving the speed limit, you should have enough time to slow down for whatever jumps out in front of you.
Some great reminders today. Thank you so much to Acting Sergeant Amy Gagnon for joining us today with the Media Relations team at Ottawa Police Services. Thanks for your time as always.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Some really good reminders there. And I've even noticed in the last couple of days that a lot of people are walking and not using the crosswalks and all of that. And as drivers, I mean, I'm mostly driving, and just, it's a reminder for me even to just take the extra steps, slow down a bit, so we can all go home to our loved ones. Lots of great guests coming up for you. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I'm joined by my friend Neil from Ottawa Valley Meats. Tune in to see what we're grilling up on the barbecue.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
We can be hurt. We can be bruised. We can be broken. Slowed down, confused, and even numbed. But we can't be defeated. We're built on a foundation that's strong, our mission unwavering, and together we'll beat as one.
Behold Emily Carr, painter, about to encounter the force that will consume her life.
Tightly they sealed their secrets from me, humble and pleading before the great trees, awaiting the invitation from the Spirit to come meet me halfway. Nothing is still now, everything is alive. At last, I knew I must see through the eye of the totem itself, the mythic eye of the forest.
Seldom able to live by her brush, before she died in 1945, Emily Carr was in the first rank of Canadian painters.
This is my country. What I want to express is here, and I love it. Amen.
I am Audrey. And I'm Leah. Leah inspired me to play hockey. The War Amps has helped me by giving me my devices I need to play hockey.
Audrey has an amputation similar to mine. What does yours do?
The stick clicks in it.
My device from the War Amps allows me to shoot a lot better. It rotates like a wrist, which helps a lot with shooting and stick handling.
When I score a goal, I feel really happy.
Little brown girl, hey, I'm Picasso in Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, we want to talk about a couple of different things today with Matt Tremesta and George McDonald. Hello to you both.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, thanks so much. Matt Tremesta, of course, is the Director of Communications for the Barrhaven Food Cupboard, and George McDonald is President of the Barrhaven Food Cupboard. Matt, what's it been like in Barrhaven with the demand on the food cupboard?
Well, listen, the demand for our services has never been as high as it is now. You know, in fact, I think we're actually seeing a 46% increase in our services from previous years. And George, why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Good morning, Sam. Yes, I think the cause of the increase that we've seen is generally people finding it more and more difficult to afford food these days with the inflation. So as Matt says, we've seen a 46% increase in 2022 over the same period in 2021.
Wow.
We're serving over 1,000 people per month. which are multi-generational clients that we have. Many of them, of course, supporting families with children in them.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, it warmed my heart last night. I was at Loblaws last night, and there was 2 young women there, and they were doing a whole order, and it was all for the Barrhaven food cupboard. And I thought, there's some young people that understand how challenging it is for people right now. And Matt, if people want to make those donations, I know you've got a really creative way we'll talk about in a minute for people to get involved, but just on an ongoing basis, how can people reach out to the food cupboard?
Yeah, I think the easiest is you can find us very easily online. Of course, we accept cash donations as well. And physically, we're located, in the Walter Baker Sports Complex beside the library, and you can make donations there as well in person.
Mm-hmm. And George, we have a very important visitor coming to Barrhaven soon. Santa Claus is coming. Tell us how we can get involved in this great parade.
Yes, we're looking forward to that. The Santa Claus Parade in Barrhaven is returning this year after a couple of years of hiatus with the pandemic. It will be held on the 20th of November. And we're having a float in the parade. Actually, Matt is going to ride in it. And we hope to gather food donations from people that attend the parade or cash donations so that we can contribute to maintaining our inventory for this very busy holiday season.
It's such an important time. And Matt, I'm assuming that, people can just bring items right to the parade, as we just talked about.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Sam. I mean, in 2019, the last time this parade was held, I think the estimate was 39,000 people attended the parade. And if every one of those people brought a non-perishable items or donated, it would just be an incredibly generous gift to the Barrhaven food cupboard to ensure that our shelves are stocked, and we're ready for our Christmas hamper program. And beyond just coming together to celebrate the holidays, I actually think it's great to do as a family to show that we are neighbors helping our neighbors and to bring your kids along, and to have those discussions with your kids about why you're bringing food, and it's to help people. And, their kids' friends may have lunch at school, but that doesn't mean that they're well fed at home. And I just think it's a great opportunity to celebrate the holidays, see Santa, and show the community that we care.
I love it. We love the Santa Claus Parade in Barrhaven. My daughter and I always make our way there. So we'll stock up and bring lots of items as well for the Barrhaven food cupboard this year. Matt and George, all the best. Thanks for all your great help and keeping Barrhaven fed, okay?
Thanks so much, Sam.
Pleasure to talk to you.
Matt Trimester joining us, Director of Communications for the Barrhaven Food Cupboard, along with George McDonald, the President of the Barrhaven Food Cupboard, a great team doing great work there. We wanted to spend some time today with KJ Thomas. How are you, KJ?
I am doing well. How are you, Sam?
Good. You are always up to amazing things. A social worker, women's mental health program, family support and information group facilitator with the Royal. KJ, what are you up to these days?
Well, I'm really happy to be chatting with you today because I really wanted to take a moment to share with the community a really important event that's coming up tomorrow. So we are having our annual Women in Mind conference. And before I get into the details of what that means, I want to start off by saying that when you hear Women in Mind, you might think, okay, this is for women. It certainly is a day about women's mental health, but I really want to encourage that anybody can take part in this. Our target audience is mental health practitioners, frontline service workers, allied health workers, students, but certainly we can all learn and benefit from learning about women's mental health. So everyone is invited to take part in this.
And what do you find when you're working specifically and focused on women's mental health? Is there equal sort of representation in terms of how women are being cared for?
There is not, and this is a large part of what we are going to be discussing tomorrow in the conference. We really want to dismantle, actually the title of the event, Learning to Walk Together, Dismantling Systemic Inequities in Mental Health Care and Healing Community. So what that means, I mean, that's a big mouthful, but there are certainly marginalized communities and there are certain pockets of people that are going to face different outcomes in healthcare just because of the systems that we've built. And women in particular often come up against these systems or intersectional identities, as we might say. Because we are women, the research that's been done over the years doesn't always reflect women. Women haven't always historically been part of what the research is looking at. And so some of our unique biological needs are not reflected in certain medications or certain therapeutic techniques. And so we're really trying to break down some of those barriers and make sure that we're bringing women back to the front. Furthermore, marginalized communities, which is what we're really focusing on this year, we often look at marginalized communities, and rightfully so. We might put some emphasis on the difficulties that people are facing or the barriers and challenges, but we really want to look at all of the many achievements that are being done. So there's a lot of resilience and empowerment and self-organization and grassroots organizations around the city, and we really want to celebrate that and see that. So all of our guest speakers tomorrow are part of the BIPOC community, meaning the Black, Indigenous, and people of color community, just powerhouse women that are serving in these communities and have a lot of knowledge and information to share. So we're really excited to have this all come together tomorrow.
And how can people participate, KJ, if they're listening to us right now and they're thinking, hey, I want to be a part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you head over to the Royal website, just on the very first page, you'll see the events that are coming up, and the Women in Mind conference will be there, the link. There is a cost associated with it. So, knocking on your manager's door and kind of dipping into those learning funds that are there for these purposes is a great way to just build up your own knowledge. There's a certificate that can be given. So registration is open, and I should mention it's virtual, so wherever you are, you can certainly take part. And it's a full day, so it's $125 for the regular rate, and students are $75. And it's a full day, 8 to 4, and 4 powerhouse speakers, so really exciting.
Well, and it just, I was chatting with a young person yesterday and talking about mental health and, the message. I mean, when I was 13, 14, this person was 13, 14 years old. When I was that age, we didn't even talk about this, KJ. I didn't even know the words mental health, right? Things have changed so much. And the words, the conversation we had was mental health is health. And I think that message for young people and talking about, obviously, the focus on women tomorrow, I think it's a great opportunity for us to break some of those barriers down for sure. And I always value your time. You're welcome to join us anytime here on City News.
Oh, thank you so much, Sam. You said it really well. Our mental health is really so intertwined with our physical, and it really benefits us all to be taking a really close look at both.
For sure. Thank you so much, KJ, joining us today. KJ Thomas, social worker, Women's Mental Health Program, Family Support and Information Group Facilitator with the Royal. Does an incredible job there. We appreciate her time today. We certainly have lots of great guests for you. When we come back, we're going to have a conversation with the president of the Ontario Federation of Labour. We want to talk about what this CUPE strike means for other public contracts. Really looking forward to this discussion. Stay with us here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talk.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011, everywhere.
It's Thursday, November 3rd. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, 9 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it is 13. And here's what's making news this hour. Members of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union have announced plans to walk off the job in solidarity with QP workers tomorrow. OPSU represents education assistants and early childhood educators at several boards in the province. Now, several Ottawa school boards, including the Ottawa Catholic School Board, the Upper Canada Board, and Renfrew County Districts, the French Public Board in Ottawa, and the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario have said they will have to close tomorrow because they can't operate safely without the striking QP workers. A trucker convoy co-organizer Benjamin Dicta is on the stand at the public inquiry looking into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act last winter. Dicta says he helped promote and coordinate a cryptocurrency fundraiser for protesters who descended upon Ottawa to oppose COVID-19 mandates. He tells the public inquiry that he came to the capital in January at the invitation of Tamara Lich, one of the organizers of the Freedom Convoy, to be a spokesman for the protesters. Now, Tamara Lich is scheduled to testify later today. Rogers Communication is helping over 50,000 Canadian youth reach their highest potential. The company has awarded its 2022 Ted Rogers Community Grants to over 70 registered charities and nonprofits in 250 communities across Canada. The program supports youth aged 15 to 29 in the areas of education, health, digital literacy, entrepreneurship, and sports. Rogers is the parent company of City News Ottawa. City News time is 11:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, we know this week has been very stressful for many people. We know this looming strike by QP. We know the government is working in the legislature to try and stop this. We wanted to speak with Patty Coates today, president of the Ontario Federation of Labour. Hi, Patty.
Good morning, and how are you?
Good. Patty, this whole situation regarding education workers and strike and the government, it's been very stressful for many people. How are your members speaking about this?
Well, yeah, we are in full support of the education workers. This is a blatant attack on workers' rights, on the right to be able to bargain a fair collective agreement. This legislation takes away that right to be able to sit down at the table with your employers to bargain and go through the process. And this preempts that process, which is an attack on our constitutional rights. It's an attack on our rights of freedom, on our charter rights, and it's also an attack on our human rights.
When this, and if this takes place, I mean, it's looming, I mean, it's tomorrow. How will you react to that tomorrow? Will other members be going out in support?
We have been in communication with all of our affiliates, other unions, with our allies, with like-minded people, and the general public who are in support of this fight. So we definitely will be out on the picket lines to the best of our ability. And we will be sounding the alarm, because if the government can do this with this group of workers and use the notwithstanding clause, they can do this to every single one of us, to take away every one of our rights that we've all fought for and that we expect.
Is it frustrating to listen back to audio or to television clips of the Premier saying he's for the workers, Patty?
Well, I think that's the biggest frustration, because, when you say and use these phrases that you are for the workers and in support of workers, but it's your actions that show differently. And we see the actions of this government is not for workers. They're not wanting to sit down at the bargaining table with CUPE education workers to work this through. And they're trying to ram this bill through. And they're also trying to say that they are for parents and they're for the students, to keep the students in school. Well, the best way to keep the students in school is to sit down and bargain with the education workers. And we know that, across the board, there are many collective agreements that are negotiated on, daily, weekly basis. There's hundreds of collective agreements, and only 1% get to the point where they have to go out on strike. And we know that a strike, it can be used as a leverage in bargaining. That is part of the process. And I think what's most frustrating is we have a Minister of Labour, Monty McNaughton, who has the carriage over the Labour Relations Act. And in the Labour Relations Act, it goes through the process for bargaining. And yet he is willing to let this government, his government, to trample on the rights of all workers.
Now, I'm just going to say it right here. I've said it a million times on this show, Patty. I could never do the work of an education worker. I think they're incredibly patient. I think they're incredibly skilled. But a number of people are saying that maybe children are being used as pawns in all of this, because children have experienced the last couple of years being out of school a lot. It has been challenging for families, and really that it's punishing families and children as opposed to punishing the government. What are your thoughts on that sentiment?
Well, I think it's the government that are punishing the parents and students. Well, let's look at what could have happened during the pandemic. The government didn't do what they needed to do. They did not provide the proper class sizes. They did not provide the necessary funding for all of the schools to have the proper ventilation. And let's be real here. Education workers were actually in the classroom. They were in the schools all during the pandemic to ensure that the students had success. Many students with special needs were in the classroom. They were in the schools. Custodians were in the schools, and many other education workers. And I know this because I come from, my background is an education worker. I was an educational assistant. And what I have seen over the years is the erosion of the funding that is needed to ensure that we have proper staffing within the schools. And, we've seen that attack on education workers year after year after year after year. And many times people will say, oh, teachers. And yes, many of the attacks were on teachers, but it affects the education workers. And education workers are the foundations of our schools. Schools could not run Teachers cannot teach. Students cannot learn without education workers in the schools. And we find that there are fewer and fewer and fewer education workers.
We're speaking with Patty Coates today, president of the Ontario Federation of Labour. Is it salt in the wound, Patty, to know that this government, the Ontario government, has billions of dollars of surplus, which Ontarians are saying, put this into education, put this into healthcare. We are struggling in this province. Is that salt in the wound?
That is, and I have spoken to many frontline workers over the past 2.5 years. I've spoken to healthcare workers, PSW, nurses, education workers, lab technicians, and, they are telling me that there's less and less funding going to fund the integral services that every Ontarian relies on. But my belief is that this government is doing this on purpose. They want to create a crisis in healthcare, create a crisis in education to push forward their privatization agenda.
And what's sad about that is these are people not working frontline. I mean, these aren't, if you're sitting at the legislature, you might have been a nurse at one point, or you might have been an education worker, but you're not now. And everything that they've been through, once again, I mean, I've a lot of respect for people that work on that line. What will if this strike goes through on Friday, what does this mean for other public contracts and the Ford government?
I think everyone should be scared and frightened for a government to use a notwithstanding clause to take away our fundamental chartered rights. I think that's really scary, to take away our human rights, to take away rights to use the courts, the rights to challenge this, any rights to even go to the labor board or arbitration. If they can do this to education workers, they can do this to every other worker and in any other sector within Ontario. And if Ontario gets away with it, this could go across province to province to province in other provinces and territories that have a Conservative government. So this is a fight not only for education workers, but this is a fight for every person in Ontario. Imagine your rights being taken away with a stroke of a pen, and that's what's happening here.
Patty, are education workers essential?
I would say that education workers are incredibly important, and they are professional, and they're important to the institution of education. But the true definition of essential under the Labor Relations Act is life and death. So, I think that we need to remember how we want to frame this. And what I want to frame is that they are professional, that they do their job with integrity, with dignity, but they're not being treated with respect or dignity with this government.
Because that word is such an important word, right? That word holds a lot of weight, because a lot of people that are looking at this from a devil's advocate perspective are saying a lot of education workers, when the vaccine, for instance, was coming down, they were saying, well, we should get it. We're essential workers.
Right. And, and I think, if a group of workers is going to be called essential, deemed essential, then they have to be paid as though they are essential workers, like our police, like our firefighters, like healthcare, many healthcare workers, and, making less than $39,000. And I'll tell you, let's be honest, it's an average of $39,000. I know, being in the profession for over 25 years, before moving into the position I have now, I was making maybe $32,000 an hour. We work only 6 hours, 7 hours a day. We're laid off every summer. And, for the work that you do, the expectations of the job, the education and professionalism, if if they were ever to be deemed essential, they need to be paid as though they are essential workers.
Okay, we only have 30 seconds left, Patty. Let's say that Premier Doug Ford, Minister Stephen Lecce is listening, all the ministers are around the table, and they're hearing Patty Coates for 30 seconds. What are you going to say to them?
I'm going to say that, you need to stand, if you really say that you're for workers, that you're working for workers, you need to stand up. You need to stop this bill. You need to get back to the table. And I don't think I've ever seen Stephen Lecce, the Minister of Education, at the table. And that's what needs to happen. Bargain. Let's go through the bargaining process and let's get to a fair collective agreement.
Patty, really appreciate your time today. Thank you. We'll be following up, obviously. Patty, this is a discussion that certainly doesn't end today.
Great. Thank you, Sam, very much. Have a great day.
You too. President of the Ontario Federation of Labour. That's Patty Coates. Lots of information there as we head towards potential strike tomorrow. We know that there are still, I'm sure there's still dealings going on, but we're going to be following this very closely. When we come back, Eric Alper is going to be here. It's Thursday, which means we talk about music. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. That was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I'm joined by my friend Neil from Ottawa Valley Meats. Tune in to see what we're grilling up on the barbecue.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, well, let's just start off with reminding you that the clocks go back. And that being said, on Thursday, we'll tell you how you can properly ensure that your body adjusts to that time change. We'll also tell you about some local theater because there's a return to live in-person theater here in Ottawa and the benefits of hobbies, especially for those suffering from PTSD. All that and more on Thursday's Daytime.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
After a 2-year hiatus, we are back with brand new episodes of Celebrate Ottawa starting this fall. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that will entertain you and will even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grind, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
From coast to coast, all across Canada, there's something very special going on. It's time to show your support. Time to spread the word. Time to demonstrate your commitment to safe and sober driving. Join thousands of Canadians and tie a ribbon on something or someone you love. And take the time to have a real conversation about impaired driving. Mad Project Red Ribbon. Tie it, wear it, show it, share it, live it. Find out more at mad.ca.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Little brown girl,
Hey, I'm Picasso in Vontief. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
7 hours and 50 days since you took your love away.
The unmistakable voice of Sinead O'Connor. And of course, we wanted to spend time today with Eric Alper, publicist and music commentator. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Hey, Sam. So good to talk to you again this week.
Well, I'm so excited. You brought a friend with you.
I did. You know, I figure that I can talk for hours and hours and hours about somebody I've actually worked with before in the past, Sinead O'Connor, especially because of her brand new documentary that is easily one of the best music documentaries out there. But I thought that, you know, why not just have the best person around to talk about Sinead O'Connor? And that's Chris Burkett, who actually produced that song that you played at the top of the show.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me. And hi, Eric. How's it going?
No, that's not Chris. No, I'm only kidding.
It's great to chat with all of you. And Chris, when you even hear us play just a little snippet of that song, take me back to the moment that you were producing this with Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah, in fact, obviously, because it was a big hit, I hear it quite a lot. So it invokes a nostalgic feeling of those early days when I was working with Sinead, and in the late 80s, early 90s. I got a lot of memories and a lot of inside stories. I don't know how much time you have, but there's some inside stories about working with Sinead that, which some of them are funny, which I could tell you about.
Well, of course, I want to hear a funny one of absolutely.
Just far away.
Absolutely. No, you tell me a great story. I want to hear one.
Well, one of the funny stories about. I could tell you briefly the history about that, how I came to work with Sinead.
Sure.
And I was an in-house producer for Ensign Records, Nigel Grange's company, the late Nigel Grange. And Ensign Records they phoned me up one day and they said, Sinead wants some tracks mixed. So I mixed 2 songs on Lion and Cobra, put them on me and Mandinka. And they loved it, and they released them as singles. And Sinead liked the sound and everything. So when it came to do the second album, they actually started it with Nellie Hooper. But she walked out of the studio after 2 days, and the label phoned me and said, "Look, we got the studios booked. We don't have a producer. Would you mind taking this, finish doing this album with Sinead?" And we just started recording. So I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So, 'cause I got on well with her. And so we got to do that song. Faulkner O'Kaley, who was her manager, played me that song in the car outside the studio. And when I first heard it, I thought, well, it just needs some arranging because it was Prince's version, and I didn't think it was very strong as a single. But so we worked on the chords, we changed it a bit, and the vocal was done. I don't know whether you know this, but the vocal was done in one take.
Wow.
She came in one morning. She didn't like studio, so she didn't hang around very much. We only spent 6 weeks doing the whole album. She came in one morning and she said, "I'm going to do Nothing Compares to You Now. Put the track up, Chris." So I played it up in the machine and everything, and then she just slammed the vocal down in one take. And then she said, "No, I'd like to double track it." So she double tracked it perfectly. So she really knew that song really well. Wow. And it was amazing that we got such a great vocal. But when the song was released, it got to 42 in the UK charts, and then the BBC said, "Oh, it's not going to be a hit. We're going to drop it." And so I was kind of surprised about that. I wasn't sure there's going to be a hit. You never do when you're working on records, but. Right. Anyway, they went in and did a video at the Montparnasse Cemetery in Paris. And that video just got everybody. She was so emotional on the video when she sang the song. She was thinking about. She told me that she was thinking about her grandmother, who just died, and who was the only person that was nice to her when she was growing up. She had a terrible childhood, so she was really emotional when she did the video, and she started crying. And that video just got the song from going out of the charts right up to number 1, just beside that, and then it became number 1 in every country. So it goes to show the power of visuals.
Oh, absolutely. And Eric, I mean, even just hearing that just a few seconds of it as we started our segment today, Nothing Compares to You. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are, you hear that song, and those visuals come to life, don't they, Eric?
Yeah, and it just puts you back into a time when you realize just how absolutely alone Sinead O'Connor was during her peak of her powers and her popularity, how courageous you can look back and see that she took on the Catholic Church, she took on the Irish Constitution, she took on the Grammys, she took on the American national anthem, standing up for what she believed in. And although that, public figures now are widely applauded as being activists, and in fact, we almost demand them take a stand for something, or else they're kind of demonized for not taking a stand and using their voice. It took this long, I think, for the general public to realize that maybe she was right, and maybe not maybe. I think she was right in a lot of things, and that's certainly coming to light more and more as time goes on, especially with the help of the new documentary, Nothing Compares.
And Chris, she paid dearly for so much of that, didn't she?
So, what did you say?
She paid dearly for so much of that.
Yeah, she was in a lot of suffering. When I was working with her, she was not really happy. She was happy with the work, but she was not interested. You should know that Sinead was not interested in being a star. I'll tell you a funny story. We went after Nothing Compares to You went to the top of the charts. She did a concert at Hammersmith Odeon, and I was with the record label. We're sitting there, we got ourselves a nice comfortable box and everything, and she started doing the show, and then it came to doing Nothing Compares to You, and this is what she said when she announced the song. She said, "There's a song by Prince, which I covered. I didn't write it. If I'd known it was going to be a effing hit, I never would have done it." Oh, and then the label was all like, had their arms in, "Oh no, what's she saying?" No. And that was classic of Sinead, because she was not in it for glam and glory. She had a message. She had a lot of messages, which, as Eric said, before her time, and that was the main thing with her. It wasn't about stardom or anything like that. So it's really refreshing, and I look for that kind of thing when I produce artists, which I consider Sinead to be a true artist.
100%. I mean, she's just incredible. Eric, we only have about a minute left, but has anyone else covered this song? I mean, obviously Sinead covered it, but anyone else since that you're aware of?
Not really. I mean, certainly not to the extent and anywhere near that popularity. It's Sinead's song, essentially, and it's really a shame that she won't perform it in concert. In fact, in her autobiography, she talks about the fallout between her and Prince that was so bad that she didn't want to cover it anymore, and that kind of led to so many other moments in her career that you just look back on and say, like, wow, it's such a shame that she had to go through this. But like she said in the on the last line of the documentary is, they thought that they could bury her, but it turned out that she was just a seed, and that's pretty profound coming from Sinead.
Wow, absolutely. Chris, we only have about 20 seconds, but have you seen the documentary?
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, I was in it too, but
wow,
they didn't put my name on it, but I saw myself in my old studio in London with Sinead, so it's pretty cool.
Wow. Well, I can't wait to see it. I haven't seen it yet, but it's definitely in my plan. Gentlemen, this has been a thrill to spend time with you today. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Eric Alper, of course, and Chris Burkett. Chris Burkett, producer of Nothing Compares to You, the one and only Sinead O'Connor, here on City News.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
Of your life too. There are many features, pricing, and rates that differ.
It is 9 degrees in Smiths Falls. It is 13. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As it stands, QP workers will walk off the job tomorrow despite legislation that would make the strike illegal. Joel Harton, MPP for Ottawa South, tells City News the fact that the Ford government is threatening to invoke the notwithstanding clause rather than bargain with QP in good faith tells Ontarians how the government likes to do things.
I think we're going to have a game of chicken right up until midnight tonight. But frankly, I just wish the Premier would actually back up some of the things I've heard him say about how much he respects the workers of this province. He's the leader. The buck stops with him. He has to tell his education minister and the bargaining team that these workers deserve a fair settlement. And I think they deserve at least what the Premier gave his own MPPs.
And he says, in the education system, the support workers are frontline workers and they are the ones that deserve a pay raise, not politicians. Now, OPSU has also announced that its 8,000 workers will walk off the job tomorrow in solidarity with QP members. OPSU represents education workers such as early childhood educators and education assistants at several boards in the province. With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Layers needed today. You'll need them this morning especially, and then not so much for the afternoon. Lots of sunshine and 16, the guaranteed high. Tonight, partly cloudy and 7, and tomorrow, sun and cloud, a brisk southwest wind, and all the way up to 19 degrees. Could hit 22 on Saturday, and some wet weather moves in Saturday night and for Sunday. For today, the guaranteed high, 16.
City News time is 12:02. Ottawa Police is asking residents to avoid the area of Ramseyville and Walkley Road. Officers say there is a police operation going on in the area. Residents can expect to see officers from the Canine and Emergency Services at the site until tomorrow, and police say there is no risk to the public. 3 more organizers of the Freedom Convoy protest in Ottawa are scheduled to appear today at the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act. City News reporter Irene Precklett has more.
Testifying right now, Toronto trucker Benjamin Dichter, one of the convoy organizers. He says he started to realize that some of the others involved, including convoy lawyer Keith Wilson, who testified yesterday, were politically connected.
We have, or a few days later, we have Keith Wilson and Randy Hillier's buddy Tom Marazzo and Doug Ford's buddy Dean French setting up meetings with people in the city pretending to be negotiating some sort of deal.
Also set to testify today, the highly visible Tamara Leach. Leach was responsible for creating one of the initial online fundraisers and soon became one of the movement's most recognizable leaders. Irene Precklett, City News.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, it's lunchtime, everyone, and I am loving what we're doing between 12 and 12:30 every day is we invite business leaders, community leaders in to have lunch with us and talk about those top 5 news stories of the day. And coming to the table today is Maria McRae and Claudette Kane. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Maria McRae, of course, is a former city councillor for River Ward, and Claudette Kane, former mayor of Gloucester. Thanks for joining us for lunch today. Let's talk about what's on everyone's mind today. And of course, the Ford government is to pass legislation later today forcing a contract on education workers. Maria McRae, how are you feeling about this today?
Well, it's extraordinary what the Premier is doing with the notwithstanding clause. And I can only hope that mature heads will prevail and both sides come to the table and prevent an ongoing long-term dispute.
I mean, this has been going on for so long. I think they've been in negotiations for 150 days. Claudette, are you surprised it's come down to this?
Yeah, I'm surprised, especially since, the kids have been out of school for 2 years. The parents have had to make alternative arrangements as parents, as families, and now we have the biggest power struggle going on since the truckers' convoy. And I'm really saddened that at least I haven't heard that they've considered other avenues open to them. But, I mean, what about mediation? What about arbitration instead of a threat that we won't talk to you unless you say you're not going to strike? That's unprecedented, Sam.
Well, and I think too, Maria, I was just going to mention that, we're seeing so many other sort of unions get a little bit nervous about this because they feel like their rights are being taken away, even though they're particularly not at this table, but they're worried about other negotiations coming up. We were speaking a little bit earlier with the president of the Ontario Federation of Labour, and, this is concerning to not only these education workers, but many people across the province.
Sure, I'm sure that there are other unions that are concerned about what they're seeing, but I think that as Ontarians, we should all be concerned about the kids. I mean, if you look back what the damage was from COVID, whether it was the lack of socialization or lack of access to in-person learning, the big impact's going to be on the kids. Then you look at the families that might have to scramble for daycare, and you look at the workers themselves who are, in some cases, very low paid, but have super important jobs in these schools. So I'm worried about the whole big picture.
It's definitely concerning for sure. Let's turn our attention now to the election that took place, of course, on October the 24th. It seems like a lot longer ago to me. I don't know about you, but it seems like it was just yesterday, Claudette, that we have a new mayor-elect, of course, and a lot of new fresh faces around the table. I mean, when you were mayor, what was it like at this point, trying to sort of get ready to lead, if you will?
Well, as mayor, you want to know what your council's agenda is, and each individual's agenda, and try to form a collegial, respectful council where everybody understands that it's about issues, it's not about them, it's not about people. And so once the mayor has a handle on the agenda of each, then they work the first big thing they have to do is the budget, right? And so they have to look at how their priorities can be accommodated. There's usually a departmental review so that the new councillors, including the mayor at this point, the new mayor, knows what departments are, what committees are, who are the leaders in terms of management. There's so many a pocket of stuff that they have to deal with before they start with the real business, and also they got to see what committees they'd like to be on. And that will be in the news. I'm sure it usually is every year, that one wants this committee and the other one wants that committee, and no, you're not getting it. I mean, so that's it's going to be a fun time, I think, in the next month or so.
For sure. Maria, would you call this time a time where people are jockeying for position?
Absolutely. I'm sure by now all the committees are already determined. I know that there's been meetings with the councillors-elect last week and this week. I've spoken to some of my former colleagues about some of the things taking place right now. And so I can only hope that the right people end up becoming chairs. Some people feel that it's owed to them. Oh, I've been here so long, I have to be given a leadership position. And I would argue that leadership positions are for leaders, and we cannot stand by and watch another 4 years of any kind of rhetoric like that happened last term, where some of the councillors wanted to be bigger than the job itself. And, you know, this is a saying that I didn't make up, but I've heard it all the time, which is when you serve in public office, it's not about wanting to be something, it's about wanting to do something. And I agree with Claudette. They're not there to be the big shot and act like they're the big deal. They're there to get stuff done.
Claudette, how did you, when you were mayor, I mean, you were known as somebody, and I've always respected this so much, Claudette, you were known as somebody that didn't sugarcoat stuff. I mean, you gave it to people straight, really, honest conversations at the table. How do you sort of maintain that, that straightforward conversation, but also ensure that you're looking out for the interests of the community as a whole?
Well, the first thing, like Maria suggested, you have to bring the team together. Everybody's entitled at the municipal level, as you know, to express their views and express their wishes on any matter. But at the end of the day, you have to come out as a team. And there's diverse agendas because there's diversity on council. And if you agree at the beginning that you're going to be respectful, you're going to be straightforward, you're going to be understanding of everybody's views. Put yourself in their shoes. I mean, one may represent Barrhaven and the other one represents Orleans, way at the other end of the city. They can talk. They can come to some sort of understanding, and then it carries the day at the council table. It's not an easy thing, especially the numbers. I had 7 on my council. We've got, 24, 23?
Yeah, 24. It certainly is, to your point. I mean, it's a big group of people, lots of different personalities. And Maria, one of the things I think I'm probably most concerned about, I mean, I was just a staffer, of course, and I didn't hold political office at all. But, all of the talk about all the, sort of that fresh look and changing the page and hopefully all getting together and getting along. I do get a little bit worried about Mayor-elect Sutcliffe from the perspective of something's going to go wrong at some point, right? So I just don't want people to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? I mean, this isn't all going to be roses and unicorns.
Of course not. And first of all, I'd say you weren't just an assistant. Assistants are a super important part of the process and are the ones that almost have all the direct contact during the day, especially with residents who are the bosses. I would agree. Throwing the baby out with the bathwater at the first crisis is ridiculous. And of course, there's going to be the brave people on Twitter and social media writing all kinds of nonsense, as we saw during the election. I think that Mark is smart enough, tough enough, and again, has enough integrity to look past that and just focus on the job. He knows that he was elected with a very strong mandate in a tough election. He has the mandate to do what he suggested in his agenda. And I agree with Claudette that there are so many diverse voices coming to the table, whether it's diversity of the people and their work experiences or their educational experiences, but also the geographic areas they represent. But this group has to come together collectively because we have to remind them, you are city councillors. You are citywide councillors. You have to make decisions on behalf of all of us. And I think because of the heightened, I don't want to say interest in the election, because it didn't certainly show that way in the voter turnout, but I think people are going to be paying more attention, and they don't want the same nonsense that happened before, where one member stands up all the time, is constantly negative. Doesn't really matter what the issue is, but they feel, oh, I have to be the official opposition. There's no room for that. On principle's sake. Mm-hmm. If you have to be the opposition because you oppose an idea or you oppose a principle that you voted on or that you campaigned on, that's one thing. But no one's there to be the official opposition against the mayor.
Definitely agree with all of that. Maria McRae is joining us for lunch today here on City News. She is former city councillor for River Ward, and Claudette Kane, the former mayor of Gloucester, has also pulled up a chair at the table today. We appreciate it very much. We're going to come back. We have lots to talk about. Stay with us here on Lunch with Sam on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I'm Nicole Martin, the proud ambassador for the Comfort Bear program. Comfort Bears provide these cuddly bears to local children who are terminally ill, facing trauma, or battling a serious illness. Every $20 donation will place a Comfort Bear into the loving arms of a child involved in our program. It is our hope to distribute 1,000 bears in 2022. Please join us and provide comfort to kids in their time of need.
You know the story. When the RCAF said Mach 2 fighter, 2 place 1,000-mile range, the British said it was impossible. The Yanks tried twice and failed. They said, you're dreaming. We said, fine, we'll build it right here in Toronto. And now you guys, my guys, are saying that it can't be done, that they were right?
Now that's the rocket that we used to get the model up to speed, and then the onboard sensor tells us.
Come on, baby.
Damn it! But we did it according to your specs. The specs have changed. We did it. Arrow 201. You're cleared for takeoff.
We did it!
Although the government canceled the project and destroyed the prototypes, the Avro Arrow remains for Canada a world benchmark in aerospace achievement.
Donations to the War Amps have a lasting impact on amputees. Today, your support gives them the artificial limbs and resources they need for everyday activities and learning to live with amputation. Having access to our essential programs helps amputees prepare for tomorrow on their road to independence. The War Amps is committed to improving the quality of life for Canadian amputees, but this wouldn't be possible without you. To learn how your donation helps, visit waramps.ca.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I'm joined by my friend Neil from Ottawa Valley Meats. Tune in to see what we're grilling up on the barbecue.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Or stream on City TV.
Also invited to the table, Claudette Kane, former mayor of Gloucester. We're talking about those news topics that are probably on your mind as well. Listen, I have been watching this Emergencies Act inquiry with much interest, of course, like we all have been. Claudette, when you think about the testimony we've heard over the last couple of days, particularly, Pat King, Chris Barber, we're going to be hearing from Tamara Leach as well. What are you thinking about what was happening from a convoy perspective?
Well, that's the first power struggle of the year. And to have, I listened a bit to Pat King yesterday, and he's the height of arrogance. He's a person that has a very high opinion of himself and looks down on everybody else around him. They're all nuts. We're all nuts, except him. Well, take a look at his radical responses, his hatred that comes out flowing. And he's supposed to be a leader, an organizer. Like, he's scary. And goodness knows the other two or the other three that are going to testify today and tomorrow, I guess, they're part of his team, or they speak against each other. It's really scary, Sam.
And the theatrics of it all, we saw that, Maria, as well, and Claudette, we saw that yesterday, Maria, with Pat having to be reminded about language and all that type of thing. And it was, very unfortunate. We were wanting to bring a lot of the Emergencies Act inquiry to our listeners. We were dipping in and out of that inquiry, and unfortunately, we went to it at one point, and there was very harsh language. We had to pull it down here on City News. We couldn't have that being played here on City News. I mean, it just that really discredits anything, I think, as well, just when you're trying to make it more of a theatrical performance than actually testifying.
Well, it's simply outrageous. And these people had the opportunity for the first time to be heard under oath to get their message out. And as Canadians, we should hopefully all agree that we have the right to peacefully protest. Doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's peaceful and legal. And they turned that protest into a complete farce. We know how much it disrupted the city. So I had to laugh when they say things like, oh, no, we didn't really mean to disrupt Ottawans. And then you start hearing things like, yes, as soon as we had the mandate, we went to go honk the horns and whatnot. So I think it shows that, again, it's a fractured group. There wasn't just one leader. And I think we heard that from some of the testimony of some of the police members last week. But I also laugh in a little bit way because I hope that this testimony they've given under oath is going to be used against them in their trials, so that if they impeach themselves on the witness stand by saying something different, that the judge will look at it and say, well, were you lying under oath then, or are you lying under oath now? Because we need to get to the bottom of this. And the notion that they would come to Ottawa and that the government would resign and that they would take over is, again, another farce.
I love when the lawyer side of you comes out, Maria. I love it. Such a good point. Of course, I didn't think of that at all. That's fantastic. And I think there's, certainly some interesting dramatics going on here. When I was watching last evening some of the coverage, and the way Pat King even was walking into the room, you would think he was going to perform in front of 100,000 screaming fans. He's walking in there like he's a rock star. Claudette, what advice would you have for Premier Ford and Sylvia Jones as we head towards this opportunity for them to do the right thing and come and testify? What would you say to them?
Well, exactly what you just said. Do the right thing. Although it's not the provincial bailiwick, if you will, to invoke the Emergency Measures Act, they still played a part in this whole affair in January, and to come and speak to the inquiry, to the public and to the media about their part in it, their advice or not advice. I mean, right now it looks like, what are you trying to hide? Rather than we want to be helpful to the process. So, I hope that they will change their mind and come before the committee.
Really disappointing, Maria, certainly from my perspective, that Ford and Jones have decided to go the legal route. What's on your mind about that particular issue?
Certainly agree with both you and Claudette. It's very disappointing. And, there's a risk here, and the context is, if the judge rules against them and forces them to testify, then there's legal precedent forcing elected members to testify, which right now they have immunity from. And again, you look at that clip of the Premier, I think he was at a gas station pumping gas, and he said, oh yes, if I'm called, I'll go, or whatnot, or something to that effect. I just wonder what made him change his mind.
Right.
And And, you know, for someone who has, again, a strong mandate, he's the premier for the next 5 years. If they're concerned about political fallout for some reason, they've got 5 years to explain themselves. So I really don't know what the motive is.
I don't either. It's going to be so interesting, and like I've said a few times here, you know, anybody that hasn't agreed right as soon as they're summoned to testify, and they go kicking and screaming. I mean, it's just, you know, it just they've made themselves the story, which also really irritates me, as opposed to what the job is at hand. Let's end lunch on a little bit of a sweet note today. We're hearing rumors, and they're just rumors, but that Ryan Reynolds, the handsome, talented Ryan Reynolds, is interested in buying the Ottawa Senators. Claudette, do you think this actually could happen?
Well, I think it could. He's already purchased a team, the Welsh soccer team, and he's a friend of Ottawa. He wants to keep the team here. I like to see fresh blood that's positive. So far, it looks like that. He's a very successful and ambitious entrepreneur and actor and all of those things. And I think just the fact that he answered that tweet with a little meme, you know, just indicates I don't have anything to say yet. I'm thinking.
That was,
and so I hope that he's a valid contender.
It's certainly going to be interesting to watch. I know, Maria, you and I are both Sens fans, of course. And what would it mean to you if Ryan Reynolds were to own the Ottawa Senators?
Well, first of all, I have to say Claudette sounds like a big fanboy, but I'll leave it at that. She knows a lot of details. I think it'd be fantastic to see him come forward, given his international reputation in terms of people know him. It may bring fresh blood to the team. Who knows, in terms of advertisers, people that are buying box seats, seasons tickets. He may also partner with a local group, and I think that would be the best of both worlds. So you've got someone like him involved, and then you've also got someone or a group of people whose feet are in the local community as well.
Maria, have you headed to a game yet this year?
No, not yet.
Not yet. How about you, Claudette?
No, I haven't been there yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I can't think of two women I'd rather have lunch with than you two, and we should actually have lunch together as opposed to just have lunch here on the radio. Can you imagine that debate, the three of us at lunch? Really appreciate your time today. It's been a pleasure to spend time with Maria McRae, former city councillor for River Ward, and Claudette Kane, the former mayor of Gloucester. I hope you'll join us again here on City News.
Well, nice to talk to you, Maria, as well.
And likewise, Claudette, and thank you very much, Tim. And I think lunch would be fun.
I do too, absolutely. Let's plan that. Thank you so much. When we come back, it's the business lunch. We're going to get down to the business of the day. We have lots of great guests for you. Sean McKenney's going to join us, of course, president of the Ottawa and District Labour Council. Boy, we have lots to talk to Sean about. And Michelle Louis Jean is going to join us from Lux Bloom's Flower Cafe. Lots of great guests today. And we're going to finish off our business lunch today with the owner and general manager of One World Bazaar. I don't know if you've ever been there. It is so cool, so interesting. We're going to tell you all about it. You'll want to stay with us here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Little brown girl, Hey, I'm Picasso Win Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive.
Drive sober.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Thursday, November 3rd. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, it is 9 degrees, in Smith Falls 13. And here's what's making news this hour. Premier Doug Ford says the government will use every tool at its disposal to ensure students stay in class full-time. And the province has, quote, no choice but to use legislation to quash a planned strike by education workers. The government is expected to pass a bill today that would impose a contract on education workers with the Canadian Union of Public Employees. QP has said it's 55,000 workers, including educational assistants, custodians, and administrative staff, will begin striking tomorrow despite the looming bill and the fines it would impose for walking off the job. One of the organizers of the so-called Freedom Convoy demonstrations in Ottawa earlier this year says he helped promote and coordinate a cryptocurrency fundraiser for protesters. Benjamin Dictor has told a public inquiry that he came to the capital in January at the invitation of Tamara Litch, one of the organizers of the Freedom Convoy, to be a spokesman for the protesters. Dictor says he came to Ottawa with the goal of ending pandemic-related mandates and spreading a message of, quote, peace, love, freedom, and unity. Leach and another organizer will also testify at the Public Order Emergency Commission, which is examining the use of the emergency powers in mid-February to clear the prolonged protests. And the Ottawa Senators are likely up for sale. The rumors continue to fly about who might buy them. But what could the price look like? Moshe Lander, a sports economist based in Montreal, tells Wake Up with Rob Snow that Pittsburgh Penguins recently sold for around $900 million, so the Sens could be sold for around the same price. Lander says the biggest X factor is what happens with the new arena, since that is likely to add lots of value to the team, but also stability to the new owners. City News time is 12:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I wanted to invite everyone to the business lunch now here on City News. We use this time every day between 12:30 and 1 to highlight businesses and business leaders in our community. We wanted to spend some time today with Michelle Louise Jean. How are you, Michelle?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So tell me all about Lux Bloom's Flower Cafe. It certainly looks beautiful.
Thank you so much. So we opened our doors on Canada Day, so on July 1st of this year, brand new in the market. It's two businesses in one. So we are a full-service flower shop as well as a cafe. And the whole idea came about after I started an online flower shop. I was doing an online flower shop as like a hobby or a side hustle for a few years while I worked as a legal assistant. And as I did that from home, it grew and people were really liking my flower design. So I wanted to have my own flower shop, but I like to do things that are a little different and unique. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do a flower shop, I really would like to do something completely different that's never been done in Ottawa. And so that's how I came up with the concept of a flower cafe. So the cafe is flower themed to go hand in hand with the flower shop.
And it is absolutely gorgeous from the pictures that I've seen. I haven't visited yet, Michelle, but I'm going to. Absolutely. What's it been like to be in the heart of Ottawa at this beautiful cafe?
It's been really good. There's lots of foot traffic in the area. And it's been really good. The summer's been really busy with back to school and the new students coming back into Ottawa. We've noticed it was busy as well. And it's just good with social media. The business kind of markets itself with people coming in, taking their pictures and their videos, posting them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We've noticed that people have been just kind of promoting the business for us. So it's really led to, lots of people coming in, which has been great.
What other advice would you have for anyone, Michelle, that maybe has taken an online business and made it into a bricks and mortar business? Any tips or strategies there for anyone listening from a business perspective?
I think nowadays it's really important to have a strong social media presence. I feel like that's what has made me grow a lot over the year and even gave me the confidence to go into brick and mortar. I always made sure that the Instagram and Facebook were really well done, and I had great relationships with a lot of the followers, and that led to a pretty loyal clientele. Once I saw that I had a solid and loyal clientele online and on social media, I thought, well, okay, it can only get better when we have an actual store and people can then come in to see the product, come in to see, to meet me and to get their items customized.
So your inspiration for your designs, where does that come from?
Well, there's actually the concept of the flower cafe itself is not new or like a new idea. There are a few flower cafes, especially in the UK and overseas in Dubai. They've been quite popular for a few years. So I would see these images again on social media, on Pinterest, and I absolutely fell in love with them. And I thought, well, one of these days I have to make it out to London. I have to make it out to Dubai to go to these cafes. They're absolutely stunning and beautiful, and people were posting just the most gorgeous photos. And then one day it just clicked as I was getting ready to prepare for my flower shop and I was looking for ideas. I thought, well, you know what? I think these would actually do really, really well together. The flower cafes are doing very well in the UK. And so I thought, well, not only could I bring that concept to Ottawa, but putting it together with my flower shop might be something that would do really well.
Well, it certainly is a great concept. And Lux Bloom's Flower Cafe, if someone was to visit, where are they heading, Michelle?
We're right at the corner of St. Patrick and Dalhousie in the Byward Market. Our address is 254 Dalhousie, and you can't miss us. We have literally hundreds of pink flowers hanging on the outside of the store as well as inside, so you really can't miss it. A lot of people who don't even know who we are or where we are end up stopping because of the beautiful floral installation that we have outside.
Well, I always think it's very brave to start a business, so congratulations, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle Louis-Jean joining us. Lux Bloom's Flower Cafe, right down there in the market. Sounds like a great destination to head to, just to check something out new in Ottawa. Certainly wanting to support all of these businesses in town. We want to talk about the business of education for a minute with Sean McKenney, president of Ottawa and District Labour Council. How are you, Sean?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
Good. This week obviously has been very busy for many leaders in the union world. What's this week been like for you, Sean?
Well, it's been busy, and I think it's been disappointing and frustrating for a number of us in respect to some of the discussion that was happening at Queen's Park this week, including Bill 28. The government's attempt to force those workers to accept a specific monetary increase for their collective agreement.
What are you hearing from people this week? You were top of mind for me. I can only imagine members and other, people in this sector would be reaching out to you as well and getting your take on what's happening. Do you think this is going to be something that's going to impact not only, of course, in the next 42 or 48 hours, but beyond that?
I don't know. I'm hoping not. I think that the vast majority of people are hoping that folks can get back to the table. There can be a mutual respect in respect to each other's position. There can be some serious discussion and serious negotiation. I don't think we've seen any serious negotiation. I think we've seen a government come forward and say, look, this is what we want you to accept, and if you don't accept it, so I'm hoping that cooler heads are going to prevail, that we'll have the employers sitting down with the union and having some and negotiating the way the contracts are supposed to be negotiated with. You hear a lot about this 11.2% that the union is asking. The fact of the matter, and most are aware, that there's not been significant increases there by those workers for the last number of years. There's always a starting point with respect to negotiations. You have the employer coming in at a low number. You have the union coming at a higher number. The hope is that somewhere in the middle, that there can be the signing of this collective agreement by both parties, but there has to be the recognition by government that these workers do a significant amount of work during the day. They're entrusted with our children, or ensuring that where our children are spending the vast majority of the time, fall and the winter and the spring months, is kept safe. So the whole thing is unfortunate. At the end of the day, the parents and those that have children are left scratching their head and wondering what's going on. So I think all of it is unfortunate. It didn't need to happen. I think if government was serious about negotiating, they would have committed many, many months ago. It's not like they just have been meeting for the last week here. They've been meeting for a long time.
My understanding, 150 days that the conversation has been going on. We spoke with Laura Walton in the summer about this, trying to get this deal done. I spoke with Patty Coates a little bit earlier today, president of the Ontario Federation of Labour, and I asked her this question regarding the Premier and his sort of talk about being for the workers. When you hear a Premier say you're going to be there for the workers, it feels good, but in this case, it doesn't sound like he is.
It's one thing to use words. It's another thing to use actions, and clearly in respect to attempting to invoke the notwithstanding clause of Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's just crazy. It's ludicrous. It's almost as if he's firing a shot against the battle of workers throughout the province. And he, of all people, should recognize that, these are a group, 55,000 of them, of QP workers that work in the schools, part of the schools in the province. But the labor movement is a lot bigger than that. And when he does things like this, again with the notwithstanding clause, and removing something so important to us as union folks, and that's a right to collective bargain, that's significant, that's serious. That's when we come together and you often hear words such as sisters and brothers and solidarity. Man, they're there because it was the union movement that throughout history has shown repeatedly that when pushed and pushed and pushed and poked, we have no choice but to push back. So the hope number of us, of course, there's going to be a significant number of pickets set up across the city tomorrow. The Labour Council and its affiliates, we represent about 50 workers in the city, 90 different union locals. We'll be shoring up those picket lines across the city, and let's hope, I think all of us hope that it's short-lived, that it's just tomorrow and there's some serious discussions. Government becomes serious about the importance of our children going to school. Recognize that for sure, but again, it's no different. If he wants to talk about the working person and what a supporter of workers he needs to show people. If he's, as he says, that it's all about the students, show that you're about the students. Be serious about bargaining collectively with the union.
Well, certainly during the election campaign, I mean, we saw a number of union leaders come out in support of Doug Ford.
Absolutely, and he appreciated that for sure, and he catered to that. And now we're seeing some of those same unions, the Laborers International of North America, for one, that have stinging letters to the Premier saying, look, we don't appreciate this. We don't appreciate you walking on the rights of workers across the province. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not just. Don't do it. Get back to the table. Negotiate with the union the way it's and work on the system the way it's supposed to. It was designed for.
Sean McKenney, where will we find you tomorrow?
Well, you know what? There's a half a dozen picket lines set up throughout the city. They're going to start at 7:30, east, west, south. I'll be visiting those for sure throughout the day, as will a whole lot of other people in this city.
I really appreciate your time, Sean. I know we called you sort of last minute because this story is obviously ever evolving. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Sean McKenney spending time with us today on City News, president of the Ottawa and District Labour Council. We are following this story very closely when it comes to education workers, CUPE, and of course, the government. You'll want to lock it in here to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, well, let's just start off with reminding you that the clocks go back. And that being said, on Thursday, we'll tell you how you can properly ensure that your body adjusts to that time change. We'll also tell you about some local theater because there's a return to live in-person theater here in Ottawa and the benefits of hobbies, especially for those suffering from PTSD. All that and more on Thursday's Daytime.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver, you've stayed over, called home, you've called a cab or a friend, and planned ahead. Let's keep doing the right thing. Support sober driving by getting yourself and your friends home safely.
Do the right thing.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
I am Audrey.
And I'm Leah.
Leah inspired me to play hockey. The War Amp has helped me by giving me my devices I need to play hockey.
Audrey has an amputation similar to mine.
What does yours do? The stick clicks in it.
My device from the War Amp allows me to shoot a lot better. It rotates like a wrist, which helps a lot with shooting and stick handling.
When I score a goal, I feel really happy.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I'm joined by my friend Neil from Ottawa Valley Meats. Tune in to see what we're grilling up on the barbecue.
Culture, the best fans.
the One World Bazaar. And if you have not been, you have to go. It is such an awesome, I'm going to call it an event, but it's more than an event. It's a shop. It's an experience. And Anika Backer joins us now, owner and general manager. Hi, Anika.
Hi there. How are you?
Anika, this is one of my favorite things to do every single fall.
Oh, that's so great to hear.
Honestly, I love it so much. I was there about maybe 2 weekends ago now, and I had so much fun just walking around, because the One World Bazaar, for those that haven't gone, is just this incredible collection of items that you literally have collected from around the world. I'm not describing it as beautifully as you would. So tell us what the vision is behind the bazaar.
For sure. Well, I'm so glad to hear that you've been coming over the years and that it's a family tradition. I know it's a family tradition for a lot of people from in the Ottawa Valley and beyond, but the bazaar started over 40 years ago. My uncle was an original hippie, and he was living overseas in the 70s in Southeast Asia and started bringing back little bits of handcrafted goods that he found. I think he started with masks, and then that slowly grew. And at that time in Ontario, there was definitely no goods like that available. And so he saw an opportunity there, and it slowly grew over the years. So it's been 19 years in Manotick Station, our current location. 41 years overall, and effectively, I mean, we're kind of like the original pop-up shop. Yes, exactly. We're here for 8 weekends only, and we try to create that great fall festival atmosphere. And it's in an old converted barn that my grandfather actually built for cattle and machinery back in the day, and it's now, what we like to say is come travel the world under one roof. And there's fantastic handcrafted goods from artisans who we know and we've known for years. And then we have also in the last few years really added on to the more festival side of things. So like this past weekend, we had a full blues band play out front. We had the Indonesian embassy come and do a cultural weekend 2 or 3 weekends before that. We've got live music this upcoming weekend, things like that. So it's a really fun time, and the weather this season has been fabulous. So we're looking forward to some 20-degree weather this weekend.
Oh my heavens. Even like the weekend I went, it was stunning. Like the leaves were still on, and it was picturesque. I felt like I was walking into a painting or something. It was so beautiful out there. And Manotick Station Road and Mitch Owens, correct? That's the cross street. And so that Manotick area is so beautiful. The parking lot was packed. So this is something that a lot of people do. Remind us of your last weekend. When do you shut down, Anika?
Yeah, so we're open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Our last day is November 20th. Okay. And we are actually open for the afternoon and early evening of Remembrance Day as well. So, yeah, there's still 3 weekends left to come shop in person, and we have gone online since COVID, so there is a collection available online, available all year round. But truly, the in-person experience is unlike anything else, I have to say, and people really love it. I mean, we've been doing this for 40 years, and we kind of know what we're good at, and people really love just like being immersed with different cultures around them and having all this having this type of experience. So.
For sure. And one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you on the business lunch is because it's a really interesting business model, right? I think a lot of businesses would think, well, if you're only open 2 months of the year, how can that be successful? But you are. And, it's everything from obviously housewares to clothing to jewelry, and everything in between. So it really is a driver, I'm assuming, around Christmas time and gift giving, but also, furniture for those people that are looking for something for their house. So how does the business model work?
For sure. That's actually one of the first questions we almost always get when we describe what we do. So we are only open for the 8 weekends in the fall for the in-person experience. In the winter, myself and my parents were traveling probably about 2 to 3 months internationally. We always go to Indonesia, Thailand, and Mexico for product, and then every year we try to add on someplace new. Turns out that my cousin's actually getting married in India, so we'll probably be going to India this upcoming year, which I'm really excited about. And so we work directly with the artisans who are making the goods, bring back shipping containers full of product, everything from furniture to decor, clothing, jewelry, and everything in between, ceramics and carpets, and there's lots. And then we get it all ready for the fall sale and the online shop. So yeah, the business model is such that we are buying decent volume. We're going directly to the producer. We get enough people through the door through the fall season and the online shop to keep it going. But it's definitely, the word spread through word of mouth, and the community's been so supportive over the years of coming back. And I think everyone really loves the fact that they know that they're supporting a person who made the good, and we try to tell the story of who the artisans are and everything. So there's that whole direct trade aspect as well.
And the uniqueness, right? I mean, of some of the items, you wouldn't find them at your local shopping center, right? So the uniqueness of everything. And I really noticed when I was there, because typically I go with my daughter. She was working, unfortunately, so I was there by myself. So I really had this opportunity to kind of look, who was there. And you did see, families with little ones, and little ones would have, a unique toy or something that they had claimed as their own. But then you would see seniors. I mean, it really was across the board. And the jewelry section, of course, is always a very popular one. So you just saw, just it seemed like a part of our whole community that happened to be enjoying the One World Bazaar that day.
For sure. And I think something that is transcendent towards all ages is people just love interesting, different things, and the stories behind items. Everyone loves a bit of an experience. Most people love to travel, and like the experience that comes out of travel, and that's what the bazaar is always all about. Support the artisans who are making these goods. Find something different that you won't find anywhere else. Experience travel, even if it's just in Banishik Station. I hope that anyone who hasn't come to visit us pops on over. I mean, this weekend is going to be fabulous weather, and we've got a few more weekends until we close down and go traveling again.
Well, there was a few. You have the best job, by the way. There was a few items there. I'm moving into a new home, and I was like, ooh, I might come back for that. And I think you see that, right? I mean, I think people don't just go the once over the 8 weeks. Sometimes you see people come back and maybe bring a family member or two with them.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, we really encourage people to come back. Like, we have the one main barn that is the shop, the boutique shop that's open to the public. Then we have another space that's full to the rafters of just straight storage. And we actually had 2 massive shipments arrive in Ottawa that were quite delayed since we've opened. So we had a big shipment come in from Egypt on weekend 1 of opening to the public, and then a 20-foot container from Indonesia that was full of primarily furniture, as well as some other hand-carved goods that came in weekend 2. So the product has really turned over, and as things sell, obviously we replace them with other things. But I mean, we got 2 massive shipments and replenishments right during the middle of the bazaar, which caused some logistical challenges, but we got through it.
I can imagine.
But it's been fun to see customers come back and discover things that they either didn't catch the first time or that are new on the floor and interesting.
Well, you are inspiring me to come back, of course, and I'll be there, Anika. Don't you worry. I'll definitely come back. And the business of the One World Bazaar, I was always very, very curious about it. You've answered a lot of those great questions today. I wish you all the success and enjoy those travels for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think India is going to be fascinating. I've never personally been. I've been to Bangladesh a few years ago, but my parents, I've been to India for the business for sure. And then I think this upcoming year with COVID loosening a bit and travel being a bit more easier, we're really excited to get back on the road and find some great pieces to bring home.
Well, I'm not only looking forward to the next couple of weeks, then I'm looking forward to 2023 already. So Anika Backer, thanks so much for spending time with us today. Owner and general manager of One World Bazaar. If you have not checked it out, you need to go. It's Mitch Owens, Manitic Station Road. Look it up on the website because there are very, very specific days, as Anika mentioned. So we want to make sure